We're good.
Awesome. All right, it is 7:06 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order. There is a quorum present. The city secretary was unfortunately unable to attend. We're going to move on to agenda item B, citizen comments. Have a number of them here. We'll just start off the top. Jim Fields.
Oh, okay. It pays to turn it in last. Alrighty, Jim Fields. Well, first, I want to thank you for allowing me to contribute to tonight's workshop. Jim Fields, I live at 16413 St. Helier. I had a chance just to go through the documentation. I want to thank the city manager for having it available. But what was, it looked like to me, it's just a blueprint for a church. I still understand why we spent $350,000 for a company that designs churches instead of, city facilities, which is very strange. And maybe that explains why the council, the admin, we have 4 meeting rooms, unbelievable, 14 council chairs, and 128 seats, since the thing's huge and it has a big, a huge lobby. Again, it looks just like a church to me. Recreation, 6 classrooms, really? Has a kitchen, so we're going to serve food there. Or I guess we're going to turn that into a place to, I don't know, it's bizarre to me. The admin building has a lactation station. Again, it sounds like a church, but really? The person has a baby, I think it should be home, maybe doing a...
By law, we're required to have a spot for that?
Some
Yes.
Some up to 2 years.
Let's let Mr. Fields finish.
Yeah, he answered it. Thank you, city manager. And then Public Works, I did not know that they understand shower, washer, dryer, and they have a laundry room. I didn't know they're going to wash their own clothes there. But anyway, and bottom line is the citizens voted no on this, but I'm hoping that, I know we spent a lot of $350,000 on this thing, that we could revisit this and get somebody in here that really knows how to design city facilities. And one last question, if we have 30 employees, where do they all work? Because I didn't see a place for 30 employees. Anybody, are they home? That's an easy question. I said, yes or no? Are they at home?
There's offices for all of them there.
For all employees?
Yeah.
Okay. And if that's the case, why aren't we using cubicles and going green? That's what everybody else does in the world. They go to cubicles. That's why I think we need to have a different architect look at this. The managers all have their private offices, but the other employees, they work in cubicles. And unless I've read the schematics wrong, I didn't see anything like that. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. The first comment back I'll make, the lactation room, there's a nearby agency that's looking at a lawsuit now because they didn't provide one. And there are multiple legal reasons we need to consider having that. Gentlemen, if y'all have a seat there, and then once we finish citizen comments, we can pull those 2 chairs back in so you can sit up here. Does anybody else have a reply they wanted to make?
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, the lactation room, sometimes moms will pump for like up to 2 years. So it's not just newborns.
I think it'd be their home, but anyway.
Not everybody can afford to take 2 years off of work.
It's also a little presumptuous to make that assumption for someone else, don't you think?
No.
I'm just curious. I just think it's a little odd that you think you get to make that choice for another human being, considering it's not you.
Okay, they can lactate at home, can't they?
And,
whoa, don't do that.
Well, thank God you can't. Can we move on?
Yeah. Okay. Next comment is Rick Faircloth.
Oh my.
I'm Rick Faircloth, 16010 Lakeview. I responded to your online request. I sent emails in and also made a response. And my thought is that we shouldn't promote another bond in May, and that we go a very slow process to do that property over there. and use existing funds and not go to have the citizens go on any more bond debt. I just think it's just bad decisions. And I think you've all got my comments. We'll talk about those a little. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Beatrice Mendez.
Hi, my name is Beatrice Menendez. I live at 16217 Delosier Street. Mine is just an observation. I've heard from different city council members, and I know it's frustrating that there's not a lot of citizens here. I mean, look at the room. I'm sure it can be frustrating because you guys are doing your best and working long hours, and it seems like it's all you guys are getting complaints. But this meeting was set some time ago, and there's nothing on the awnings about it. There's stuff about the parks. There's stuff about the alerts. There's stuff about the next city council meeting. And again, I just think I don't think it's anybody did anything malicious. I just feel like if we're really trying to make sure that we have more than 15, 20 people at a meeting, that it needs to be across the board trying to advertise it. And it was kind of disappointing that I didn't see that today.
Thank you. Dennis Peterson.
Yeah, I appreciate you calling the meeting. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor, and I know that there's a lot of stuff up in the air. I, for one, have 2 daughters, and think they should have a lactation room, by the way. They would have greatly appreciated it when they were that age. But I am in favor of the city hall, new city council, new city hall. I think that we need one. I think it needs to be the face of Jersey Village. I think it needs to show who we really are as a public. I also think it was a good decision to buy the Baptist church. I mean, that's the premier corner in our village is there, right there. I mean, Jersey Drive and Rio Grande Lakeview, how can you be any more central and public than that? So those, I think, were good. I am of the opinion that the $20 million is excessive, that we have budgeted for this, quite excessive. As a matter of fact, I developed a concept and presented it to you that I think is an alternative that will meet the needs of the city as well as meet the cost of the citizens. I believe we can do my proposal for somewhere in the $10 to $12 million range, all in. So I think if I can save $10 million, if you can save $10 million, I think it'll go a long way to convincing the public that we have something reasonable here. And as the workshop proceeds, I hope I have a chance to comment on those.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
James McDonald.
James McDonald?
That's me.
The other James.
This is so weird. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Actually, I think I'm
going to start by saying I'm pro lactation room.
Thank you. Thank you.
Support women. Some say I'm written by women. Anyway, good evening, council members. My name is James McDonald. I live at 16306 Acapulco. Been here for about 10 years. But I'm coming to you tonight to speak about, as a Scoutmaster for Troop 1177, which currently is very much enjoying using City Campus A, whatever Isaac calls it. We meet there Monday nights. My boys enjoy the space that we have here. We have been bouncing around since Foundry kicked us out 2 years ago, and so it's nice to have a permanent spot here in the village. Every Monday night, that building comes alive. If you're ever there to walk in, as I'm sure the city manager has seen, you won't just see an old building right now with no chairs. You see boys 11, 13, 15, 16 years old working in a patrol, working as a group, huddled over a map, learning how to navigate so they don't get lost in the woods. You'll see older scouts teaching the young ones how to make a lashing, how to perform first aid. That's stuff that benefits the city, and I think it's very much helpful to keep a campus building like that or some kind of resource for the city to keep it. I don't envy you guys for having to decide how to do that, but please don't get rid of city assets like that. As soon as that opened up, it started filling up with sewers and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and every other kind of scout and community service object. So please, I hope you see that as a sign that it's worth to invest in the community like that. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, sir. Kimberly now.
Kimberly now, 15601 Singapore Lane. I call myself the unofficial official Jersey Village historian as I started researching the history before we even closed on our house 5 years ago. I did bring up 2 of my narratives from this year just to give a historical background on that building that people have different feelings on. Clark Henry was born in Edinburgh, Illinois, came to Texas with his parents at the age of 6, where they settled at Aldine. Henry Road in that community was named for his family. He worked for dairymen in his early years and hauled milk for farmers into town to the milk deposits and returned with feed for their cattle. In 1939, Mr. Henry bought over 800 acres of land in northwest Harris County and eventually increased his acreage to over 1,300 acres. He operated a large herd of Jersey cows, and the ranch became known as the F&M Jersey Ranch. In May 1940, he started to manufacture ice cream at a plant on Hempstead Highway and developed the idea of milking cows from behind large plate glass windows where the customers could watch. In 1954, he started the city of Jersey Village on his ranch land and attained his one last ambition, and that was to see beautiful homes in the area. He donated 5 acres of land for the First Baptist Church of Jersey Village, bought the first 100 seats and the first 100 songbooks, then donated building material for the extra Sunday school rooms. The organization of the Baptist Church began on April 28, 1955. Clark Henry and Leroy Kennedy stated they would donate a church site of adequate proportion in Jersey Village. They would also donate a lakeside lot as a site for the church pastorium. Decided upon and adopted was the name Jersey Village Baptist Church. On June 30th, 1955, 42 persons from the Garden Oaks Baptist Church were declared church members, and overall church membership quickly grew to 96. The local newspaper on May 1955 included the church location as the Old F&M Dairy on Hempstead Road. Letterhead dated August 15, 1956 from First Baptist Church, Jersey Village, Route 9, Box 770. There was also a roadside photograph of the Jersey Village city limit sign stating a population of 250. For 19 months, the congregation met in the offices of the Jersey Village Development Corporation when the chapel was completed 1 month ahead of schedule, with the main building to be constructed later. Many of the charter members went on to serve Jersey Village in other capacities, such as Mr. Hardelek as church deacon, as well as one of the first councilmen when it was incorporated as a city. After running the F&M Jersey Ranch from 1938 to 1948, Clark Henry's vision of residential homesteads, complete with a golf course, was truly ignited by the cooperation and enthusiasm of not just the new homeowners on the few streets leading up to and around Jersey Lake, but also from the surrounding area, because it took more than a small village to get Jersey Village to keep growing into the thriving community we can all be blessed by. So Building A is the original church that photographs of the congregation of this new church building, photographs of the shovel going into the ground while this congregation is watching and celebrating. And you know, it's a church, and even there's Bible verses on the Henry family headstones. So it's not just a church property. It's like, besides the golf course and building houses here, it's the beginning of Jersey Village. And we pride ourselves on being a little town, especially next to Houston, and wanting to keep things local and all of that. But if we start throwing away the actual history, and there's not a whole lot, just because it was a dairy farm and everything, someone won't let me have a Jersey cow, but you got to hold on to something with history. Otherwise, the joke about Houston is like every historical building is torn down. So, otherwise, yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly.
I also think you're the official, unofficial historian of Jersey Village.
I think that concludes our citizen comments. Next, we're going to move on to item C, discussion regarding Jersey Village City Complex next steps. There's quite a bit in front of us. Austin, do you want to summarize anything, or are we going to?
I think I can trust council's read the memo. It's a few pages long, but try to put the full story from when we started to where we're at today and how we got here. So the purpose tonight is to discuss the next steps of the project. The exhibits there do show the schematic design for the current buildings as laid out presently. And if council wants to phase the project, we would want to discuss the lobby portion of that project, because that's kind of where the windows would be for the permits as well. We do have the architects here to help answer any questions that the council might have around that. But just to reiterate, we are at schematic designs. We don't have a guaranteed maximum price. We don't even have construction drawings at this point, so there is a lot that could change in the design.
Did any council member come with a proposed plan or direction that they wanted to take it?
But I would propose that we look at the two buildings. I understand, like James McDonald saying, the community wants some community spaces, and I've heard that from other people, Jersey Village Senior Outreach. I know that with BSA, apparently there's a separation between BSA and, Boy Scouts and the churches, and so it makes it more difficult to have community spaces. So I understand that is a desire. I also understand that, y'all are making do with some of the spaces right now without any further improvements. I've said in the past, and I've voiced it to council, that spending $20 million on a remodel, renovation of a $4.2 million building, $4.2 million property makes no sense. Putting that in perspective, buying a house for $420,000 and putting $2.1 million. If you were going to do that, you would demo the house and just start over. Although I've said to other council members that there is the property on Dillard Avenue that is for sale, about 24,000 square feet for $6.5 million, and I checked with the broker and it's still available. That property is subject to a lease. Some of it's leased up, so there would be some interim steps that would need to be taken. But in light of focusing on the existing property, my recommendation would be that we look at two things. Building A, which, Austin, you have this laid out primarily for city offices, all of the city offices, and I believe you said you've got 25 to 30 people in this building, and it looks like there's certainly at roughly 12 to 14,000 square feet. Building A is certainly big enough, given typical office environments, which, as Mr. Peterson indicated, office sharing, hoteling, common spaces, bullpens, that sort of thing. Everybody does not need an office. Everybody does not need a window office. Everybody does not need two guest chairs. That's not the way that business works now. There's more collaboration, there's more working in cubicles or smaller spaces, and then meeting rooms. So I would think that this building would be more at 12 to 14,000 square feet is more than sufficient to office all of the employees who are currently in City Hall. With respect to the circumstance over Public Works, having that property up for sale and having a deadline that we need to look at, the plans as they exist suggest taking the old youth center, and I forget what building that is, but the old youth center, and converting it into Public Works. That building is 14,170 square feet and was built in 2005. And I noticed, Austin, when I was going back through some of the information, Public Works showed in your summary as having a total of 7,000 square feet. Is that the size of the Taylor Road facility?
No, the Taylor Road facility was about 15,000 square feet. The new building, the one we're leasing back currently, the old Public Works building had about 7,000.
Okay, because I'm looking at this was in the package of materials that you sent, this spreadsheet about existing, and it shows Public Works as having about 7,200 square feet. But I think I can address that pretty quickly, and that is something that Mr. Peterson brought up, which is there's this idea that you need to put all of the Public Works vehicles inside, and I think that presents, and maybe the assistant fire chief can weigh in, I think that presents potentially a safety issue. Again, if you eliminate the little credit building I, there's more than ample space there for storing trucks, and then maybe you can put inside just the trailers and things that can be easily removed. But between Building A and Building G, I believe that with some guidance from an expert, such as Mr. Peterson, you could potentially design a remodel of those two buildings and look at bringing it in at considerably less than the current estimated cost. And I think that's something that doing that alone, demoing this building, continuing to maintain the existing Civic Center as a place for council to meet, with an eye that some point in the future, when tax revenue, sales tax revenue, property tax revenues increase, that we could build a new council chambers. And sometime in the future, we could do more with respect to the community rooms or the basketball or the gymnasium, etc. But I think that, in my opinion, using this property, I think that much of it can be used as is, and I think that Building A and Building G can be reasonably remodeled and have more than ample room for Public Works and for all the city employees, and that's something that we could do out of pocket. And I will say one other thing, and this is very heartfelt, and that is that I think that for this council to make the decision that we're going to go back out for a bond in May, or we're going to just proceed in a $20 million renovation remodel as encompassed in the subject of the bond in November, is to be tone deaf to the voters who very clearly said, we do not want a $20 million expense. And I know Drew sought to try to elicit some information, but we've got a handful of people, less than 100, and there were roughly 1,700, I think, who voted. And so while the response from those people is interesting, it's not compelling one way or another. But I think as council, it's our responsibility until our tax revenues look like they're going significantly higher to be very careful about how we spend the money, including the money that we're receiving from the sale of the land, and that we revamp the plans for these two buildings to accommodate Public Works and the city employees. And I think that we could potentially, with guidance of an expert like Mr. Peterson, which, by the way, Connie, you had requested what are his credentials, and the fact that he had worked for Lockwood Andrews Newman, who, if I recall correctly, weren't they involved in doing the Hobby Airport project?
Yeah, we redid the Hobby Airport, we did NRG Stadium, we've done Metro Light Rail, we've got...
I mean, you look at the credentials on this, and the fact that he was the president of that company, an architect engineering firm that has done major projects in the city of Houston, as well as probably throughout the state. And we're fortunate enough to have someone of that caliber who can come weigh in. So I think that we can navigate our way out of this, reach a compromise that meets for the benefit of residents, doesn't necessarily require coming out of pocket with a bond, borrowing money, burdening the taxpayers, but we can strike a balance if we work hard. So that's my opinion about the direction we need to go.
And I requested the credentials because we did sit down together and discuss this, 3 or 4 months ago? And I didn't see that in there, and I wanted everyone to see where and what he's done. So that was...
And I'm very appreciative that you did that. I knew he was, from talking to him, he seemed very qualified, but then to look at the resume, it's like...
And he told me about this when we sat down, so hence why I requested that he said that. So are you asking for recommendations or just general discussion?
We were here to discuss, we need to, number one, decide if we're going to continue with design work.
Okay.
2, what's the end game look like? Are we going to phase this? Are we going to continue? How are you going to fund it? There are several questions here to be answered. So Councilman Hughes brought what he wanted to do. I think that's admirable. Anyone else have a direction they want to take it, or do we want to discuss his option?
I think one of the avenues that makes this conversation easier is if we take something off the table. And I think one of the things that through this feedback, although at 53 people, by the way, anyone who is here who filled out the surveys, I really, in the feedback, thank you for taking the time. Also, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for attending other meetings. We get accolades for serving. Well, you guys are part of this community, so thank you for actively taking part. But I think one of the things that I saw from some people is just sell it. And in fact, that's probably been mentioned. I might even had a motion in a previous council meeting to do said thing. But I think too many of us believe in the vision of that it is a gateway to the city. I appreciate, Mr. Peterson, what you had to say about the building and the location and what it can be and that vision. And I think and the history of it, I think it's important to do that. So I'd like to, during this discussion, remove selling it. In fact, that would be a very last resort if we ever needed, money, or something. But I don't want that to discuss tonight. I mean, there's probably more options than A, B, and C, but I'd wipe that off the table.
I agree with that.
I think.
would agree with that as well.
And I'm willing to table the concept of selling it. I mean, I think that we need to more fully explore the possibility of doing a phased approach, doing these 2 buildings, a better design that meets the needs, and then look long-term to improve it. Because the property, as you said, its location, the location is ideal. I was excited when I heard that they bought the property. I just wasn't so excited when I heard how much they wanted to put into it. So, if we can get back to what does the city really need, and the first and foremost, because Austin, I know in your report you talked about what's in the comprehensive plan and what's in the parks master plan, etc. But first and foremost, the city long overdue. We need to move those workers out of this existing city hall and put them into a good facility. So that's first and foremost. We've got a timeline because of Public Works. But, looking at this building A, I mean, to me, with some significant tweaks about office size, et cetera, reconfiguring for the way people work, including the fact that, it appears that at least some of the employees are hybrid, working at home. So I think that building at 12 to 14,000 square feet is more than ample for the 25 to 30 city employees. And I think that Mr. Peterson, when you look at the information that he provided with respect to office size, typical office size standards for C-level versus, department heads versus first-line workers, et cetera, this building is more than ample, and we just need to come up with a better design.
Where's the information you said that Mr. Peterson provided?
He sent it on
It's that email.
Monday the 1st. It was an email. And we were all on it. You may forward it.
Nope, I got it. Thank you.
So, I mean, are y'all on board with tweaking Building A and making City Hall, current City Hall, so that we can move as quickly as possible out of the existing building and into Building A, primarily with the goal of housing all of those 25 to 30 city employees in a most efficient way that also provides for future expansion when the city has money? Or would y'all be agreeable to that?
Say that again?
Yeah, basically tweaking the design of Building A so that all of the existing employees who are in the current City Hall can be moved into Building A with sufficient, efficiencies and a good work environment, with the idea that subsequently, design it in a way so that subsequently, if you add a council chambers or you add a lobby or you do whatever, it's designed for that. You don't have to go back and change things. Are y'all agreeable to working towards that?
At this point, with the responses and even some of the emails that I received, that I saw others did not receive, what's the percentage? I think it was 22% or 20 some odd percent of what? Residents who are on a very strict income, I received a very impactful email, and this is not to take away from what you're saying, but I do want to explain where I'm coming from when I get to where I'm going. Being on council is to serve the community, as all of us are here to do. I'm not in the business of scaring the hell out of people. And I am phased approach. I'm fine with whatever you're saying we need to do. That's fine. I think it's important to keep our city staff, get them into a safe place, get our public works where it needs to be. Clearly, the message was sent that this is too much money. I don't think that we should go to bond in May. I think that we need to listen, hear what's being told to us. I'm not going to worry about, I don't want my decision to affect someone worried about their financial future in their home, because values are going up. Whether we raise taxes or don't raise taxes, those taxes are steadily increasing. Our water bills are increasing. I feel it. So 20 million is too much. I said it was too much a long time ago. I still think it's too much. They said it was too much. Then in my opinion, we do need to shift. We do need to move. I'm not in the business of scaring the hell out of people. That's it. So, yes, I'm on board.
Scaring the hell out of people.
Look, when I was a teacher, I was on a very strict budget. I did the Dave Ramsey, where I had little envelopes and I would put my cash in for every little thing, and I worried that I was one accident, one hospital visit away from financially not being able to make my rent. Right. I remember that. And I'm not saying that's where we're at now, but people on limited incomes or on, what do they call them, like fixed incomes, this scares them when we're sitting here deliberating, bond issue, that this is going to affect them. It's maybe $300 a year is not much to me, but it might be much to somebody else, and I'm not foregoing the bond at all. I think right now we can't. I don't feel comfortable doing that. That's where I stand. So if that means we have to phase, shift, move, I think for every problem there's a solution, and we can do that. I think we can serve our community, provide what is needed for now and tomorrow. It just can't happen maybe on the timeline we're hoping.
Let me ask you this. I mean, so at least two of us are saying we don't think going out for a bond in May is the answer. Because I certainly feel that way. Is there anybody that believes, on council, who strongly believes that the city needs to go out for a bond for whatever reason?
I'll say, I think there was an idea, 50 people, almost 80% support the vision. And this was a really good snapshot. I know it was, not under 100 responses, but it was a good snapshot of what we were talking about, like an exit poll. And it was really interesting. I feel like it was really nice to also get the responses as they came, and so we would get a few emails every day. So I got to digest it little by little and see it over time. So I really appreciated this. High five, Drew. Thank you, Drew. But I would say it was interesting that both sides of the camp, I feel, kind of all wanted the same thing, a phased approach. Mm-hmm. And then right in line a little bit below was continued and bond for the left. But I think the loudest voice was a phased approach of all different areas and corners and pockets of JV. I used to say yes, I would definitely want to bond for the rest, but it doesn't feel like that is what the masses are asking. And I've said from the beginning, when you're up here representing it, it's not just your opinion, it's you're representing what the people who voted you in here would like. And so it feels like a phased approach is what everybody's in support of the vision, which made me feel like, thank goodness, I love that. Gave me clarity, but more importantly, like the clarity of the how seems to be the phased approach. Now the phased approach could still be a bond, but it didn't feel like that was good. It felt like it was going to be a waste of resources to go to bond if it was going to be, not voted for again.
I agree with you there. I don't think it's a good idea to go out for a bond for any amount. I think that the city needs to look at the proceeds that it's receiving from the sale of the land and look at how it can most wisely spend money and satisfy the most urgent portion of this, which, and again, I recognized community, the Boy Scouts, the JVSO, etc. There are needs there, but the most urgent need is this City Hall, these employees in City Hall.
I agree.
And I think that if we say, well, we're going to do it in a phased approach, I would ask that Mr. Peterson be allowed to work with the architects and say, how can we best do this? And even, and Dennis, I don't know how much time you're willing to give to this, but to meet with the city manager or the department heads and, what are your real needs? I know from a law world what size office a lawyer needs, a partner needs, a paralegal needs, and then your intake workers need. And you adjust it based on, and have meeting rooms based on how do you interact with each other. If somebody is a clerk and they're on the phone 24/7, they can be on a headset with two screens and they can have people right next to them and it doesn't matter. If somebody is like the director of finance, maybe dealing with delicate things, having very confidential conversations, needs to be in an office as a department head. So there's that balance, but I think that, Mr. Peterson brings a lot to the table, so I'd like to see us focus on the phased approach, no bond, concentrating on this one building for City Hall and concentrating on the public works secondary, and allowing Mr. Peterson, and I'm pretty sure that our architects who are working on this would recognize him as, oh yeah, that he is, he is a somebody who's qualified and can weigh in, and let's work towards something that makes sense. So,
well, I think definitely going for a bond in May seems premature. So whether we do phase, we get a lot done, and then the community can actually see, see progress, see where we're at, what's the cost, see the vision. I think it'll tell us if now the community is like, okay, we really still want X, Y, Z, I'm willing to bond for that. Or like, no, keep this slow, phased approach, this is where I feel comfortable. So I don't want to rule it out in the future, because I'll always listen to what the citizens are asking, saying.
And I'm certainly not asking you to do that. Who knows how, what might change. Right. The tax revenues might change. Drew or Jen?
I think a bond should be used, one, for needs, not wants. I think you could even classify the swimming pool as a need for what it benefits to the community. I don't think that's a want. I think, but you said a very key word there, Simon, as an urgent, and you described urgent needs. But there are other needs that we also have maybe with less urgency, but there are also needs as opposed to wants. I necessarily, given that we'd have to decide by February, can't necessarily rule out that. What I will rule out, or what I will say I'm in favor of, is a phased approach, prioritized. I think my first priority is making sure we have enough cash on hand, not just for the building, but before that, 90-day reserve plus extra, basically for an emergency fund. I said this before. I don't trust the state or the federal to come through in an adequate amount of time for any services, and we're going to have to fund that ourselves until reimbursed, or in case we're not reimbursed. So once we meet that threshold, what cash do we have left, and what does that take care of? So at the end of the day, is there a bond? And if there is, as a council, we'd have to go justify it, and justify every single dollar that's put in that we're going to borrow against, as Connie said, people's paychecks, people's fixed income, people's property taxes, etc. I'm with you. I think at the end of the day, I'd love to raise other funds through other means and other revenue, so we don't have to be dependent on property taxes to pay for said bond. So I'm not ruling that out at the moment. My preference is get city staff out of here. Yeah. I still want community spaces. I don't think, yes, there is this building right here, and what we had to do 2 or 3 years ago was tell every single Boy Scout troop, Girl Scout group, everything, you're allowed to it once or twice, once a month, I think, was what we had to say. And those groups can only meet at certain hours, so were left scrambling for other facilities. So I think part of a community building and being a center place of a community is having a place for the community to meet in community groups. And these are groups that we want to encourage and give them a place to stay. Can we do that with the existing facilities? Perhaps, and maybe that becomes something we pay for the upgrades of at a future time. But we have to keep that end in mind as part of the vision. Now, whether the basketball court and the gym and those things are things we keep, I think those are wants, not needs, and I would be in favor of not doing that. I'm in favor of delaying a council chambers and a court and committee chambers for a while until we can figure that out. Like I said, council can meet the fire station if we had to. Might take a lot of moving of cars and trucks, but I mean that's possible. So I think it's a matter of prioritized. What can we do, and what is that going to cost us going forward? I don't know if that helps the matter. If we can re-engineer Building A, put another thing in there, okay, I think it's been looked at a lot, but another perspective, maybe we ask later tonight, we ask the architects why this instead of that. We can ask Austin this. Same thing. I'm no expert in these things. I'm representing the citizens and myself in spending their money wisely. And that's what I want to get at the end of this session, is how can we do that? And how can, quite frankly, we get the best value for every dollar we're spending and not overspend?
Yeah, I mean, that's critical.
I've agreed for a while that a phased approach on this is the better one. Looking at everything, I don't think we can rule out any future possible bond. I do agree that if we go to bond, we should have our ducks in a row. We should know everything we can know. And I have doubts that we can do that by February. But I don't think we can see the final vision and accomplish the needs without some level of bonding at some point. I think at some point it's going to come in there. Thankfully, there are a lot of bonds that are going to drop off. Maybe that's an opportunity, but I agree. I don't know that May is. I would want to see good, solid information before we get there.
I think to have the community also behind us, we need that component for any bond.
One of the aspects of having multiple classrooms and a lot of that community space is a lot of those groups are all looking for those rooms at the same time. So it's not like they can rotate through as easily as you might think, because it's 5 p.m. to 10 p.m.
The Boy Scouts aren't meeting at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday.
No. And you already rule out like a good number of people are not meeting on Wednesday nights, and they're not going to meet on Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. They compete for the same amount of time.
Or Sunday between 1 and 5 or whatever.
Unless you're with JVSO, a lot of people come to lunches on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we have some experts here, and they've listened to us talk for quite a bit. Austin, would you mind at least, let's introduce, if they have a little bit they'd like to say, and then we can get back to discussion and do some question and answer. But if they've got some information they want to share or explain from what they've heard, I'd love to have their contribution.
Yeah, so we've got Jim Powell from Merriman, Powell and Holt Architects. You're one of the principals at the firm. Long history of designing municipal buildings and other facilities around the Houston area. We have Jose, I forgot his last name, who's also been with the firm for many years, designing the same thing. And we have Danielle and Kai as the 4 architects that we've been working with throughout the process. We've spent many hours with them over the last year, over a year now, working with the city staff who are experts in how City Hall should be laid out and how we should operate and how we can operate the most efficiently. Working with architects who are experts in designing buildings and using our 2 expertise to try and come up with the best layout that we possibly can for what we have here. And so with that, if they want to...
I got Danielle, Jose, and Kai. I'm sorry I didn't get the principals. Jim. Perfect. I want to free y'all. I know that your chairs were not available when y'all came in. Unfortunately, we're a little late. So feel free to take up this table with any drawings you have or move up.
Do you need me to move? Do you need more chairs?
Yeah, well, I can head over there.
I think we can move this here.
Okay.
Well, I am sorry we are late. We left early, but obviously not early enough. An accident on 610 did not want us to get here on time. So
I left Montrose at 4 and was very surprised because 290 was a parking lot at 4 p.m. from Mangum to here. So Totally understand.
Well, we want to be sensitive to your time, and so we thank you for inviting us to be with you today. So we've listened carefully and taken lots of notes, everything that you all have said today, and we have taken it to heart. We've had an opportunity to read notes from Mr. Peterson about the project, and we appreciate your time, your investment in thinking about the project and how to provide, as this gentleman said, the most value possible for the project. We take that to heart, and we've been working hard, as Austin said, over about a year, coming up with plans that you have seen, but we still have a long way to go, and this is a good juncture to consider and study any changes that this body would like to make. So for our part, we are open. We're not married to anything. We are a service provider. Our job is to serve you to the very best of our ability, and that's what we have tried to do up to this point, and that's what we intend to continue from this point going forward. So please know you have a happy and willing and grateful partner in our firm. So thank you for having us.
Can I ask a question? You okay? I was just curious, because it's brought up by multiple people. I saw it in a lot of the surveys. It's been in citizen comments. When we talk about, I believe it's Building A, and looking at that, can you guide us through the reasoning, perhaps, of why there are so many closed-door offices, and from what looks, from a person that does not read plans, why they look so big compared to what most people maybe are used to and what they consider like corporate space?
Well, that first.
So the space program that we developed was based on looking at this building and looking at all the spaces they have. Obviously, there are some offices here that are very large, and we didn't use any specific, guidelines on office size from corporate America or anything like that. We realized the offices are a little larger than they can be. A good office is 150 square feet. It's plenty big. Some of them are bigger. We were working with this building, church building from the 50s, with a specific layout, with specific window spacing, grid spacing. And we had all these departments to fit in. And we also knew that there were other buildings that we wanted to salvage. So we were a little generous with some of the space layout, and we can certainly tighten things up. We can add more offices. We can have more cubicles. We just didn't need to do that since we were preserving, we were proposing to demolish 3 buildings and remodel the other 3, plus an addition for the council chamber with some support spaces. So we have more square footage on those buildings than we needed. So we were a little generous, perhaps, on the allocation of space on Building A. But it was the best building for offices, we felt. It's in the best condition. It has a great envelope. It's the oldest building, but it's a good building, and we think it's really worth preserving. We can certainly make spaces more compact and add more program in it. You may not have windows in offices. There might be more interior corridor offices and spaces like that.
So technically, could some offices be smaller? Sure. So could private offices be converted to cubicles, open space, saving space overall? Sure. Could hoteling happen? Absolutely. But of course, this involves a collaboration with you all to make sure they function according to their needs.
Austin, you mentioned that that city staff has weighed in on this, and working with the architects has said, well, this is conducive to how we work. Is there something peculiar in the way that a city government works in terms of, because I think of officing, and from the legal world, you've got, attorneys' offices, paralegals' offices, a bullpen, and then a couple of conference rooms. And if I'm meeting 3-4 people, I can meet them in my office. If I'm meeting 6 or 8, we're going to grab a conference room. At the most, we only need 2 or 3 conference rooms, and we don't need a conference room for 50 people. So is there something about running a city government that is very peculiar, where everybody needs to have their own office as compared to like a department head having their own office and then other people, having 2 or 3 cubicles next to one another, or a bullpen, something like that.
No, and I think Jose answered that question pretty well about why we have the offices laid out the way we do. If it's a price issue that we need to go down and take out some walls, we can make cubicles. But the space here is the space. If we were building brand new construction, would we lay it out exactly like this? No, absolutely not. It's not how you would lay out a brand new building, but something like this where you've got some limited options as to what you can do, especially on the exterior, because the envelope of this building is good. This building was completely redone. I think it was in the 2010s with the new roof and those types of things. The exterior's in good shape. So we're trying to maximize reusing what's already there. And take advantage of it, which is partially what's driven the layout of this. The other piece is how we as a team internally operate and how we think that we can work the best.
So I think public perception, and this could be wrong, and not because I'll be honest, I kind of make that assumption myself, is that to have something like this, like the drawing here, versus having something more open, that this is considerably more expensive than designing something the other way. And I'm realizing the more we talk, that could not be true. Like that could just be a misperception on my part. So, is that the case? Because I think most people are making the assumption that this is like a more extravagant choice versus what may be considered a more efficient choice. So I think that is where it's coming in, like the question, like where everybody's asking that. And I do think that that's something people are kind of questioning.
Yeah, well, so deleting partitions does have incremental cost savings.
Okay.
But you're still going to have all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, a lot of the infrastructure is all the same. And when you open spaces, they can be more economical because you don't have partitions, but maybe you do something a little different with the ceiling and the lighting. So there's always a balance.
Yeah.
And
so what you're saying is, like, we wouldn't be, like, are we saving $5 million?
No.
Do you know, like, because to me, I think it's a valid comment, because I think that was probably, for me, I don't know about everybody else, the biggest, like, comment and concern I got from several residents was that it seemed almost, I guess, old-fashioned in the idea, as far as the idea of it being efficient and it being more affordable versus, a bank from 20 years ago, I guess. I'm just trying to explain.
We were told to put this number of departments in that building, and how to best fit all these department needs in that space.
Okay.
So that's what we did. We ended up with the spaces with a specific layout with different compartments. We have break rooms, we have conference rooms, we have an abundance of meeting space that could be reduced for other office space, but that was not a charge.
When you did the redesign on this as compared to the original Building A, how much of the existing structure, are there load-bearing walls in there, or is it it's framed iron? So
it's a pre-engineered metal building, surprisingly.
Okay. So basically, it could be a warehouse, right?
Yes.
And so you're just putting in demising walls that are not load-bearing.
That's right.
So you can basically move them any which way you want. Structure them. Okay.
So it's very flexible.
Yeah. But so if that's the case, I would say that I would ask that Dennis, do you want to weigh in here about in terms of, you've looked at this, you've looked at the package, you've looked at this Building A with all these offices, of 300 square feet, 225, etc. Do you have an idea about how you could improve this to make it more efficient, keeping in mind what Austin says about the way his team works, and just to get more value, since we are working with a blank canvas, basically, you're not, having to build around load-bearing walls, etc.
To keep this clean, will you stand up and answer?
Sorry, I'm going to answer this.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot more efficient way to do it. And as you said, you're working within a footprint that's predefined. And if we had a new building, you could define a footprint that fits precisely what we're looking for. But we don't, and that's okay. But I do think we do have an abundance of conference room space. I think we have an abundance of storage space that could be better someplace else. So anyway, I think there's a lot of efficiency. I think the EOC is something that should be integrated into what we do rather than as a separate function. So we could use the same conference room for, an EOC. Hopefully we don't need but once every 20 years.
Executive office.
I know it's more often than that. But
I'm sorry, I didn't.
An EOC is an emergency operations center.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted clarification.
We would probably use that 4 to 5 times a year because.
And that would also double as the executive session room for the city council, but that's in a different building, that's not here.
So let's, finish up answering.
Sorry.
Did you have anything else?
Well, I just didn't understand.
Function space.
And I think we can also provide, at minimal cost, a lot of the functions that our citizens were asking for by just retaining the existing gym, using the gym, taking the space beside it and putting the 3 big 18-person conference areas in there. That's a lot of space. And that's a lot of meetings we could have. I'd do away with the second floor. We don't need it. You can keep it, just storage. We do storage, whatever we want to do with it. So I think there's options to make the layout much more efficient. And I think, as you say, Simon, I think it can be fit into Office A if that's what we want to retain, with some additional changes, office changes, renovations, and set some office standards. And Austin, I know that you mentioned that you think your staff is experts in design of office buildings. I would beg to differ with that.
No, I said we're experts in how the city hall operates.
How the city hall operates, no
How it
question.
operates.
No question.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Where's EOC on here?
It's in a different building.
It's in building D, I believe.
No, it's going to be on the second floor. When that, where the...
Oh, you're saying put it here instead.
What is it?
Okay.
This is the new,
This is
okay,
A.
you go over here to the.
Yeah, I think Mr. Peterson kind of confused the conversation with the EOC pieces. If we're just looking at the city admin offices, the EOC is in the new council chambers area.
Sorry, I did it on.
What's the square footage you need for the EOC?
We've got 3 different conversations going on.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, once Ms.
Yes, I just want to.
It's easier though, if we're taking minutes, and we are, it's easier to have one conversation at a
So
time.
Mr. Peterson and Councilwoman Michelle were working. Once y'all are done.
I was just asking for clarification on an acronym.
Perfectly good. If
No
y'all are done, thank you, Mr. Peterson.
That's all you need.
You may sit back down.
And let me answer Simon's question if I could. I'd be more than pleased to help. One of the advantages of being retired is I can do what I want. All I have to do is tell my daughter I'm not babysitting, so that's, other than that, I'm fine.
Thank you, sir. Jim.
I just wanted to help illustrate a point that we've been talking about a little bit through an example of one of our projects. We did the Crime Stoppers of Houston headquarters in Midtown a few years ago. That's a ground-up structure.
I've been in there.
And so we programmed it, just like we did with your project, and we had the opportunity to come up with a standard office size. So the typical office size for the police officers and for the call center is 10 by 15. So we have a regular rhythm of offices, very efficient. And it was easier than working with building A. So it is definitely easier when you have ground-up construction, but it's expensive.
Because I look at this and it's like a weird Tetris. Like,
Well, it's a church, one of the first main buildings in Jersey Village. You touched on something, and I kind of want to reiterate, because we've heard a lot of conjecture and ideas. And I'm going to preface this with I'll try to make it really brief, but I want a story. In August of 2023, we had received an offer, an idea from, at then Champion Forest Baptist Church, we being the city, and said, we're going to sell part of the land. With the city as our first choice, would y'all be interested? And I'm basing this on historical notes. Austin and staff goes, tours it. They weren't expecting much. They thought this might be pliable. invites council. We set a date, one Friday afternoon, and we go through there. Also not expecting much, and if we started at the Vault building, we probably would have walked out. But we didn't. We walked through various buildings, and we thought, hey, this has potential. Oh, this is really cool. This is what? All this? For this? Okay. And we thought some upgrades were necessary. And I can see how the initial price we paid for the property, plus prices of improvements, plus contingencies and everything gets up there. And if we built from scratch, we probably wouldn't need all these, but building from scratch, you mentions cost. What's the difference between rough renovation, and I know every renovation's different, versus building from scratch might be?
Well, it really, as you know, it varies a lot from project to project, and it's easier to predict the cost of new construction for a project type than it is renovation.
Yeah.
You know, there are modest renovations and there are guts and redos. Building A is in good shape. The shell is in very good condition. So the cost of that renovation is considerably less expensive than it would be as new construction. I mean, provide some numbers. I mean, we're not cost estimating.
No, I don't want to put you on the spot for that, but I think you answered one of the questions in terms of administration. As I'll try to talk over the rain.
I mean, I would say new construction is almost always more than even a heavy renovation.
Well, we just saw the new construction of the council chambers, which has uniqueness in of itself, but that was $400 a square foot?
Plus, yeah, something like that. Plus general condition.
Which is largely an open building.
Right. So, I mean...
I also think it's important for everyone to remember the city campus project is not just City Hall. The city campus project is City Hall, it is community space and public works. I mean, and that encompasses a multitude of places, a multitude of employees, and what will be at some point citizens. So I struggle with the common statement of that's too much money for City Hall. Well, yeah, it would be if it was just City Hall, but it's not just City Hall. It's a lot, and it's a lot more than that.
All three of those things in a courtroom.
Yeah, and a courtroom. Don't forget that stuff. And yes, some of those things will be used for multiple things. And I do like in the drawings and stuff that so many of the areas are multifunction. I guess is the way to describe it. But I just think it's important that we keep in mind that this is multiple uses.
But I think at the same time, when you talk about, community meeting spaces, because right now, even though under the current plans, you're talking about demoing Building B, which is the original pastor's office on the front side, and Building C, which would be the space where you're going to put in the council chambers ultimately. But on an interim basis, isn't Building C where JVSO is right now?
Yes. I think they use one portion of that building, yeah.
Right, that's the northwest corner. And Building B, I mean, I remember touring it, and while it's not, certainly not the Taj Mahal, I mean, it's not bad. It's got some big rooms. It would certainly function if you had a meeting of, a group to do whatever, 5, 10, 20 people, you could do it in there. So I think we can serve the community by having community spaces on an interim basis while we focus on replacing City Hall, formal City Hall, where the employees work, and providing a space for public works. And I'm not discounting, Jen, what you're saying. Yeah, we do want to build ultimately a city campus, but I think that by what the voters have said, we need to take a measured approach, and that's why I'm very adamant about we need to squeeze more bang for the buck out of Building A, because right now this configuration with Building A, your plans currently, who's excluded from that? Is it Parks and Rec primarily?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Public Works is all in the Public Works side.
But so between Building A and Building G, the Public Works building, or what will be, potentially will be the Public Works building, I mean, because they're certainly, proximity, they're right next door to each other, right? So if we exclude it, as Mr. Peterson indicated, the indoor parking for all the trucks, and instead just had indoor parking for trailers or, sensitive equipment, that sort of thing, had an outdoor parking where the old credit union is, and maybe used some of that Building G for Parks and Rec, and even potentially serving as, a backup for an emergency operations center, something like that. I mean, do y'all think that's feasible? Is that, could you, and let me ask you that specific point. How does it make sense to park pickup trucks inside a building? How is that safe? Why does that?
Can I just point out that on the drawings that you have, there's 2 pickup trucks attached to trailers. The rest is all equipment. So I know that we've kind of talked about trucks being parked inside, but a lot of it's equipment, not necessarily vehicles.
I would like to also put to bed Chief Daly, who has 9 vehicles parked inside his building right now. Chief Daly, is there any safety concern or problem with IBC, IFC with parking vehicles inside the building?
No, it's 100. Our fire station is 100% sprinkler occupancy, and it's built.
And the building that we're talking about is also currently 100%?
Yes, sir.
So it's got a complete sprinkler system, so it's no extensive.
There's no code, there's no safety concern.
But okay, just bear with me on this, because I think originally there was a statement about we need to park all the vehicles, and that certainly the city has more than 2 trucks over at Public Works.
I don't think all the vehicles could fit in there either.
I don't think that's
But that was the original statement, Austin.
We talked about parking vehicles there, but not all of them by any means.
Yeah.
So where would you park the other Public Works vehicles?
In the parking lot that we'd have to create where the old bank is. Yeah, which we've talked about that for months now.
So right now, this configuration of the Public Works buildings has 2 vehicles and 2 trailers, and then it looks like, what's that, 8, 9 more trailers? Do we have 9 trailers?
Well, it looks like a forklift, some kind of.
I think these are examples, and Austin could probably talk to. Yes, there's lots of equipment.
There's a lot of equipment. I don't think.
I think it's like 26 pieces of equipment, but I know it's like the Godwin pump that we use for like floods, pumping down floods, skid steers, street sweepers, just equipment that, one, you don't want to weather, you want to try to prolong the use of it. The trailers, yes, the trailers outside would rust a little quicker, and leaving them loaded would also save on operational times. But the only reason why we parked trucks inside was because we had the space to do so, and the catalytic converters were being stolen. So we had the space, and they didn't typically park inside. They actually never did when I started here. They were outside. And then when they were getting stolen, we just started trying to strategically get them into the building, and that's what we did. I believe the initial schematic design had trucks pictured there. That wasn't the intention. It was an incidental thing. So then we changed it and added equipment, because that's the reason what we were trying to do is some of the high dollar equipment, keeping it inside so it'll last longer.
And that makes sense. I mean, if you've got high dollar equipment, but at the same time, if you eliminate that credit union building and you fence that in and maybe even build a pavilion or a portage or something along those lines, I mean, it seems like you could get a little more on a 14,000 square foot Public Works building, that you could probably squeeze out enough room to put in the Parks and Rec people. If you can't fit them into Building A, I think you could probably fit them into Building A.
I think we could fit them into Building A, but if you add more offices into the Public Works area and take up what is base space, then you're going to add more cost to that building too. I think we could fit them into Building A.
Okay.
I don't think I would want Parks and Rec with Public Works. I think
you don't think they'll get along?
That's nothing to do with that. But I don't think that goes together.
Sharks and jets.
And from everything, all the interactions I've had, Parks and Rec is a very different animal than everything else in city, all city stuff. And they're very specific to what they do. I don't know, to me it doesn't fit with that. I struggle putting them in Building A with everybody else for the same reasons. But
Yeah.
But I also think it's important for us to know, yes, we are, that stuff, like the deciding of where people go and things like that, in my opinion, I believe that to be the city manager and the city staff decision. It's our decision to decide whether or not the funding is feasible. Is the building the correct choice of the building for the purpose? Guys, I'll be real honest. I'm not going to spend my time talking about how many bathrooms it's got. I don't think that's a good use of any of our times, except for people.
Standards that the architects would know about that.
Except for people that's their job, specific job. Nobody needs our input on that, because that's not what we all do for a living.
The one thing I think other people have raised, and Simon, I know you've raised it before, is, and we haven't really had a time that I thought was appropriate to actually have this discussion, is the appropriateness of using G instead of that for public works. But given the urgency, building G is the youth space now. I think we've made it work. I think it would also be probably close to $4 or $5 million to build it new. So given those things, I think and given that we could get everything in one place, that's probably the better decision, and it's a decision, it's not a force. But all things considered, you're using good space. Yeah, it's the newest building there. I think it's great. It's very wide open. You could probably move all the city admin in there. It would be very loud, but you could do that. But just my thoughts. I wish.
Simon, I was trying to think about what you're going at. I think you were talking about rec and events. Are you trying to find a way to get everybody out of this building, but not do that community building? You just want to do a phased approach, and really it's rec and events are the only people that you can't place. So
but I think realistically, I mean, what I'm hearing from Mr. Peterson, from the architects here, is that, and from Austin even, is that Building A could be reconfigured so that it can include Parks and Rec, and with the understanding that maybe down the line, maybe people are relocated or whatever, but for the time being, between the time of construction completion and the next couple of years, we've got a good administrative building in Building A that is sufficient for all these people. And quite frankly, we talked, Dennis, I think that you mentioned potentially Public Works, what if this building is demoed, could Public Works be rebuilt here? But of course then you're dealing with new construction and construction costs. One thing I do like about Public Works being in Building G is that it's on that hard corner behind Joe Myers. It's kind of a buffer. It's right across from the fire station, so those guys can keep an eye out for, catalytic converter thieves, etc. I think with a, fenced in or a pavilion on that corner for additional outdoor storage that's safe and secure, between that and Building A, I think that really gets us what we need, and we'll continue along with the Civic Center for council meetings, and let's do this and use these other buildings, maybe even do a few improvements in these other buildings, because there's nothing in these buildings, Austin, that's toxic, is there?
There's mold and asbestos.
In which buildings? D?
Y'all have the answers. You're nodding your head. You know what you're talking about.
Assessment report in a while, but I think, Building A and the old church building and the youth building are clean, but all the others have asbestos and all kinds of issues. So
okay, but is Tarragon's report, does it say that that's is it a significant health concern? Like, do we need to get JVSO out of Building C, or the sewing ladies out of whatever building they're in?
I don't know that them being in there for an hour or two a week is any worse than us being in this building here right now. But I think it's something we would want to do do the cleanup if we need to. If we're gonna phase this in, because a phase is probably gonna be several years, we would want to clean it up and do it somewhat right.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's something where, you could do a remediation at not a substantial cost, but just from a safety standpoint. But I feel like we're moving in the right direction with respect to trying to put the City Hall employees in Building A with some modifications and tightening the offices and thinking about who needs an office versus who needs a working space and how people collaborate, etc. And doing the public works, as we've said. So, I mean, what do y'all think, Drew, Jen?
I was going to ask y'all if we were to move, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, move rec and events in there. That makes sense. If we do that, and as we reconfigure these Building A offices, shrinking offices and adding more offices or adding walls is an increase in cost. It's not minimal, but it's not a decrease. Okay.
So we wouldn't save a lot by switching from offices to cubicles, is that what I just heard?
No.
Yeah, that's another way of putting it.
Well, less walls, less doors. I mean, there will be some savings.
Some, for sure, but it's not.
It depends on the cubicle
It depends on the
unit that you buy.
furniture.
And how are those larger areas treated? Often sometimes they have special lighting, over the cubicle areas. But I would say, generally speaking, it's probably a modest savings.
Am I saving $200,000 by reconfiguring this?
Oh.
Okay, maybe that's not a fair question, but yeah, I don't see a whole lot of.
But there's something like that to me, because if it comes down to cost, to me that's worth, I would want to see the pricing on the difference of that. I understand, and I don't think it needs to be an open warehouse and everybody wears headphones. I don't think that's realistic either, but it's definitely room heavy. Very, very room heavy. And I think everybody agrees with that. But I also don't think it means that you need to get rid of things, for instance, like the lactation room or the kitchen, because people deserve to have a place to heat up their lunches when they work and not have to go home to do that. So those things I do think are important. There's a lot of things that I do think are important need to stay. But I mean, some stuff I thought was a little strange. Like, for instance, and I know not all of these are specific, but like code enforcement. Needing an office. I think that's weird.
So
yeah, and I know we've also talked about something like this was just ideas and things like that, and things can be moved around. But yeah, but I do see where it raises a lot of questions of why are we spending the money for this type of stuff. So I get why people have questions about that.
I think it'd be helpful for staff to know what's the price point y'all are comfortable with on like a per square footage number or something like that for the remodel. Because like that, it's gonna come down to dollars and cents like everything else.
That makes sense too.
So, I mean, on Building A...
Is it half the price if we end up moving? Like, that's what I'm saying. That makes a difference, right?
Half the price would make a difference. I don't think, one of the ways I think we could illustrate that a little bit is when I'm looking at these offices, I am only seeing a handful that do not, there's a reason they don't need an office. Mm-hmm. A lot of these are HR manager, IT director, community development manager. I can absolutely see communication specialists, code enforcement. Those could be cubicles. But would it make sense for y'all to look at these plans and just don't name the people, just give just a number of how many of these offices you think could be converted to an open cubicle area? Because I don't think it's that many, and that cost savings is not significant.
Well, and is the point we're trying to squeeze more off? I'm sorry, I missed it. Are we trying to squeeze more people in there, and that's why or we just think it's just too many offices?
And it's too many offices, and I think, obviously your department heads need an office, and then your department heads need to weigh in and say, does everybody who reports to them, do they need an office, or do they need, quad cubicles, whatever. And that's where, And I say that from the standpoint because, an city manager, a finance director, I mean, they've earned the right to be in an office, and they're dealing with issues where sometimes they need to be behind closed doors. But then there are a lot of first-level employees who don't need that privacy. And it's probably more productive not to have that privacy. And they can work efficiently in a cubicle or in a bullpen. So that's something where I'd say, with the architects and Mr. Peterson, if y'all can work together and try to squeeze, Austin, how many department heads do you have?
How about we stick with a dollar amount? That's going to be so much easier to try and...
Well, I'll be honest, the reason I brought it up was more from the concept of future thinking, of trying not to completely outgrow a space before it's finished being built.
Sure.
So from my perspective, my line of questioning comes from where are we forward thinking with the amount of offices versus flex space?
Sure.
Because I do think that's valid. I understand we're like landlocked and stuff, but the services we provide, a lot of things do seem to be growing in like certain staff areas. And so I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. But I also don't disagree about like a dollar amount. So where did I see the specifics?
So
it's on that last page, right?
2.4 is what you've got for building A.
So does it change? So I guess it would change do you look at cost per square foot if you end up choosing to make changes? Do we go cost per square foot, or is what's an easier way to look at trying to save money? Like trying to decrease
cost per square.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
I wasn't going to speak, but...
I'm sorry.
Well, here, I'll go. So I think it's difficult to put a number to it, but we can try. I think it's $204 a square foot for building A. As long as we're renovating the whole building, it's the same extent of renovation, just the walls might change, maybe there are fewer walls. Let's say there are fewer walls. It's the systems that drive a lot of the cost. You're still going to have finishes everywhere, right? So you're going to save a little, but I don't want to sound negative, because I want to be positive, but it's never as much as we want it to be, the savings in a context like that. So I think getting 50% is absolutely out of the question. It would never be close to that. As much as we'd try our guts out, we'd love to.
But to Jen's point, say we paid $1 million for this building, which we didn't, but for this one building we paid $1 million. You're looking at a new city hall building for $3.4 million.
And I think that's significantly less than
any of us thought it would be.
Yeah, because was it not in CIP for 10 million? Is it 10 million, right?
It's half the cost. But that was also the city hall on the Village Center City Hall had council chambers. So we're just talking about city hall's administrative offices.
I'm sorry, there's people in the back talking and I'm trying to listen, sorry.
So, what I would ask is y'all came up with the numbers, I assume, the $203 a square foot estimate of building costs?
Well, that came from the general contractor.
Okay. So, and what you're saying is that whether you do variations, you do a bullpen, you do cubicles, you do more offices or less offices, you don't think it's going to make a substantial difference in cost. I mean, it may make, obviously if you went with, we're just going to have a sea of cubicles, it would be less expensive, and if you went high density offices, it's going to be more expensive, but smaller offices, it's not going to make a huge difference. Right?
I agree with everything you said.
Okay. So that said, Dennis, can you kind of weigh in here, that $200 a foot, does that seem ballpark, or on a remodel?
I think the big question we're missing here is that how many offices we have, or how many cubicles we have. It's, if you take one existing office we have and cut it in two, then you just saved half the office space. The key is that the program listed 36,000 square feet was needed for everything in the program. That's everybody. And we're building 51,000 square feet. So we're 14,000 square foot fat someplace. And that's $6.5 million just in the extra space, wherever it happens to be. So while I think the discussion about being in an office, out of an office, cubicle, non-cubicle, is really not relevant at this macro level, I think what's the key is if we find out where that extra space is and get rid of it, and if we do phase things like leave the council chamber here until we can afford to build another one, man, that takes a bunch of money out. You guys had like, what, $400 or $500 a square foot for that?
That's been the topic. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Jim, did you have?
Well, I'm just going to, your point about office efficiency is well taken. Regarding the overall square footage, the 37,000 square feet did not include the vehicle storage area, which is an additional 7,000 square feet. Net space. And also, the efficiency factor, the gross to net ratio that is in the space program is 80%. That's an ambitious target. That's very efficient for a building. Well, the actual efficiency is 74%, which I think is in line with this project type. So when you add the 7,000 square feet of vehicle storage to the program and you use the actual efficiency factor, you come up with 46,500 square feet total. So it's not quite where we are total, but the delta is not as.
But if we shared spaces like the emergency operations center with other functions and combined it,
we have done that. We have done that. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. The EOC is used for multiple things.
I understand what you're saying, sir. You don't want to hear from anyone.
I think it was also a complex room.
Yeah, it has multiple uses.
I'm sorry, what was the question? No.
I think, once again, buildings A and G, city offices, public works, I think we've all identified them as pretty much need to haves, which totaling, according to the subtotals, without getting into all the other costs that drive up the bottom line, and let's face it, those are big multipliers. And that I don't think a lot of people, myself included, understand when you're looking at a raw number, right? You're saying, oh, well, it's $20,000. Well, actually, it's this amount plus, conditions and site work and general contingencies and then soft costs and then construction contingencies. So there's a lot of estimates that go into that on top of these original numbers. So as we keep that in mind and we try to piece some of those out, and then there's site work that probably has to be done, and it's best done all at once, right? And then there's,
Well, not necessarily. I mean, if site work is a line item, it's $2.5 million. And you're also talking about demoing two buildings. I mean,
I'm not. I didn't speak. You're right. Demo of buildings probably doesn't have to be all at once. It's probably but it comes to, do you want to keep the buildings or not? I don't know about demoing buildings. I'm not going to even pretend that I do know about them. I just know that.
Knock them down.
Yeah. Thank you. But you probably want to do that before people are using the other facilities.
Here's an idea. Everybody gets a sledgehammer. You get $5 a hit, and we profit off of this.
Now you're talking. Anyway, but what I'm saying is some of that money is going to have to be, and not all of it can be parlayed into.
Correct.
When we build the next, if and when we build.
So what we're saying is it's not going to. That doesn't mean that the entire thing is. We're only spending $4.5 million, and I think that's like I can already see how that is a misconception. It's going to be a misconception,
right?
Because it's not just the subtotal; it's all the other stuff too. There are proportional costs from that.
So to that end, because the site work, I mean, you've got site works, demolition of buildings and pavilion improvements at $2.5 million. With respect to buildings A and G, what of those costs would be part of A and G? Site work, demolition, and
is that them or is that the construction people?
Well, I mean, this is the line item.
But they didn't create the line items. I thought that came from the contract.
Is this from Brookstone?
Yes.
Yeah, so they didn't do these.
I'm asking what would be the site work cost associated with building A and G.
Yeah.
So we didn't break it up that way, but building G has a parking lot, so that would be on that cost. There would be less site work, because you're not doing this front plaza and this courtyard and some of the walkways. So we would have to draw it and price it, but it would be less than the 2.5.
I was going to ask about that. If we phase this
Yes.
and we keep building A the way that it is, and we have this overall plan, that front work, that lobby still needs to be done now.
Well, you could.
Why?
Because there's nowhere in building A to house the public unless you're going to adjust it in a way that you build out a lobby space.
What do you mean to house the public?
There's
city offices.
There's no public space.
There's no
in
front
building
counter
A.
space or anything. The counter space would be in the lobby.
So
could you not just reconfigure that temporarily or on an interim basis?
Yes.
I mean,
if we did the
where you've got Patty right now, it's just 150 square feet, 5 chairs.
We could build it as building A as is, and I mean it is covered and everything right there. We wouldn't necessarily have to have insulated, conditioned space for the public if we didn't want to.
What are you talking about?
Just do the windows the way it is. It's already under a cover and everything. We wouldn't have to enclose it.
True.
Yeah.
Put some seating out there. It's.
Oh my God.
But I mean, if we're trying to look at costs to bring it down.
Jersey, it doesn't need to look like trash, and that's what this is starting to become. I don't want. That's not the point. Nobody said any part of that.
If we're going to bring it into the inside, we'd have to look at. I mean, we'd have to reconfigure a few things, and we can go back and do that if that's the direction. But
Smaller reception area inside of building A.
You could almost just take the front desk area and turn that into, and put the people on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do that.
The only thing that I will say is that if we're focusing on building A and building G, I think that you have to incur the expense to get rid of building I.
Yeah.
Because, that's going to be important for access to building G and et cetera. So.
I being the credit union, I'm sorry.
But I mean, a demolition, I know a house demolition's only about 10 grand, so.
It's a little counseling building.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Oh, could we take the vault out and sell it beforehand? There's got to be some value. Somebody would want it, but I digress.
The biggest piece of the site work is the electrical and the special systems, and that's for the whole campus. So if we're only phasing it, that number would come down, but that number is a little over $1 million. Demolition for all 3 buildings is $70,000. You've got the site amenities and concrete and masonry. I mean, the bulk of the site work is $750,000 or so, if I'm doing the quick math right. But the electrical is the big one.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of that is equipment. You're still going to want to put the conduit in the ground for at least enough outside of this project.
Yep.
Now, the wire is the expensive part.
Yeah, maybe you can face the electrical too somehow. We were providing a new service for the campus, so if you're only doing a portion of it now, that's a question.
Yeah.
So is it possible to, I mean, the numbers that from Brookstone show the building A at 2.4 million and building G at 1.9 million for a total of, 4.3, before you have other, if there's some site work or demo involved. But I mean, to me, that's a much more palatable number to get started. And if you can do that and concurrently preserve some community spaces with the existing buildings, that's the best course of action. And I think that if the architects can work with Mr. Peterson and talk about, how can we improve design? How do we address the fact that we don't have a lobby for the customer service window, but how can we configure it so that it's functional now, but in the future, when we can't afford to do all this expansion, it can be, reconfigured for that purpose. Is that something y'all think you can do?
I think, to your point, I think from the outset, there are no load-bearing walls inside.
Right.
So everything we do, it's just,
Could be undone.
it can be temporary. We just have to have the understanding that that's money that it's going to be temporary. And that's fine, because you rent and you hope it's temporary until you can buy. So, yeah, I would agree that doing something temporary with the knowledge that further down the road, it will change. That probably could work. It beats having people wait out under the covered tarp to pay their water bill.
No, I think you can come up with something that's reasonable. And that also provides for a long-term plan.
And we also talked about mitigation in, there would need to be some type of mitigation in Building D. If we were to ever go with Building D, I don't want to scratch off a possibility right now of that. So we'd want to do that, whatever that
When
would
you're
cost.
saying mitigation, you're
I'm referring especially to the risks of mold and asbestos.
remediation.
Remediation, yeah. Mitigate the risk by remediating. And, yeah, and then council, I mean, I've always
Why don't we
advocated,
go ahead and knock down the other buildings?
I mean, would you?
I would, because there's no purpose, like, why keep them?
But what if community groups can use those buildings? Because they wouldn't be able to use Building A, they wouldn't be able to use Building G, and they wouldn't be able to use, or they're limited in using the Civic Center. So to the extent that Building C or B are functional and not necessarily toxic, then, you know, if we can make those available for community groups.
But why wouldn't we instead just, if we were going to go ahead and do the remediation
And
on
D,
since we're already paying for that, why wouldn't we just do that, let people start using those spaces, and then get rid of the others? I mean, I'm just curious, because if we're having to go ahead and pay to do that.
Well, and maybe that's, I mean, because right now Building D.
I mean, we're talking about demolition is 70 grand.
Yeah.
That's not, don't think we need a 10-year plan on that.
Well, I mean, whether you get rid of B and C, or you do some work on D for community spaces, I just think it's important that you try to preserve some community spaces.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what it's doing, is like, because that's what that is for. D is going to be for community space. Granted, it may be a few years before it is like a renovated community space. I guess I'm just curious why we wouldn't just, if we're going to remediate, allow people in.
Is that something that the city could get a cost estimate on some, you know, basically just removing anything toxic and cleaning up Building D as is, so that it can function on an ad hoc basis for community spaces?
We could. You'd also have to redo the entire AC system. That doesn't really work there.
Like I said, if it was a bad idea, it's a bad idea. It was more of just, if we're already paying for those things, why would
right.
we?
And I was sorry,
because they haven't used the second floor of that building for a few years because the air conditioning hasn't worked well, and you can tell that even the downstairs one is going too. Like you'd have to put a decent amount of money into remodeling that building to get functional for interim.
And as compared, and that might be a reason not to do as you say, and instead to just hold Building B or Building C for another year or two, just as we go down the road. I mean, because they can come in and demo it in, a couple of days.
The one thing about demolition, my biggest thing is the safety factor of one, is there a risk in damaging another building?
No.
And two, is there a risk of demo causing safety while the buildings are in use? Now, granted, you can close it and whatever and do those, and like you said, a couple days, we could work around that. So that's just ignorance on my part.
I don't think that's a significant risk. I mean, my experience, I don't think it's a risk. Certainly when I'm willing to bear.
1.5 times the height. There's risk of demoing a building. Is it high? Not necessarily.
Austin, has anyone quantified I mean, because we're talking about having community space, but has anybody kind of looked at these groups that want community space and said, what we really need is, because I know that in the existing plan, you've got 7 classrooms, et cetera. Like, what we really need is, 3 classrooms, 7 nights a week or whatever. Has anybody sort of...
Right, yeah, and that's how we came up with the design that we have, is looking at how many groups want to use the space, how many groups have asked us that we've had to turn away, sizes of the groups, so the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, JVSO, all of those things. We took all of those things into consideration when we came up with the layout that's in front of you.
And that's the 7 classrooms in Building D? Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then those temporary, like the walls can be adjusted, correct?
In the one,
on the one, so it can be made into a bigger space.
Yep.
I agree.
Because there's a lot of groups out there that have approached us about trying to use space.
And we're forming new groups.
Yeah.
We even got an email this week about one that had to move out of Jersey Village, and it sounds to me like they would be willing to move back in if they had the space.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that all of those spaces would be used regularly.
I have never had that concern. I do think that's a very valid amount of space. I mean, I think it would be used and consistently used.
I agree.
So what would be the next steps if we're interested in moving forward on G and A?
We've talked about redoing some of the space, and there seems to be a general consensus that we would phase this and that we move forward on A and G now, and that the rest of the project will be on some type of hold. Is that an accurate statement between the 5 of you?
I think it is.
I'm in support of that.
Hold in terms of construction?
That's a finer detail that, yes, we can talk about in a second. So, yes, let's do that. Construction, that we're not pursuing construction of the community, basically the community space, right? Or the courtroom and city hall space. We're talking about moving forward with A and G now for construction, and the remaining areas are not something we're looking to construct or get a bond for right now.
That's what I'm in support of for now, yes. And phase it in, and that would be bite-sized.
That accurate, Drew?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it's, yeah, go ahead, you're on a roll.
So the next question with that, if we're pausing on the Civic and the courtroom and city council chambers, do we continue to design those, or do we put a pause on design for those?
Yeah, I'd be of the opinion that we put a pause at the moment, and with the caveat that in designing A and G, that they need to be mindful of where the city eventually wants to go.
I think I would continue with the design, because I feel my concerns are that if we don't come up with a complete design with actual projected costs, no one is ever going to be behind those, no one will ever support it, and it's never actually going to get done because we don't seem to do things much here.
Yeah.
So
citizens have asked over and over for clarity, design, a picture, like something to...
Like, show me what it is,
Yeah,
show me what it's going to cost,
yeah.
and show me what it's specifically used for, and I think pausing on that is not going to accomplish it.
It's going to have to be built.
I understand not paying for, I understand not doing all of it at once. I understand that. But I feel like if we don't get a clear picture and we don't have an actual plan, that's a problem. I also think it leaves us with no room to go forward.
Yeah. Jim and Jose, is it feasible for us to design, draw out all of this to the level of IFB, and then pause?
Sorry. Before you answer,
go ahead.
IFB.
IFB. Y'all will explain that better than me.
issue for permit issue?
Issue for a bid.
For bid, yeah.
We do it?
Yes.
Regularly.
We do it.
If we, I also think people understand, we can do that and we can get an idea of what it would cost, but it's not gonna like whatever it would cost today is not what it costs in 2 years.
Yes.
And I think people also need to be aware that
Yes.
you assume people are aware, they're not aware.
Which is one of the reasons I think we would go beyond issue for permit and get finer detail into bidding, the ability to.
So you're talking about developing full construction drawings?
IFB is not full construction, right? It's close.
Close, 75% or 90%.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range.
IFC would be for construction.
I guess one concern that I have is, the city spent $387,000 for construction drawings for City Hall in Village Center that never came about. And one of the concerns that I have, and I don't know how things work in the engineering and architect world, but is that if we go forward now and do a complete design and construction drawings for a project, but it might be 5 years from now before they build city council chambers or before they do the other parts of this, are those drawings, do we have to start over? Do we have to spend another $300,000 updating those drawings? That's my concern. Dennis?
Jim, Jose?
So I'll go first. So we're asked this question, a fair amount, and our answer is usually like this. When our clients don't quite know what the future phases might be, they're not locked in, our recommendation, generally speaking, is don't go forward. Save those fees. But if they know what they want, and it's just if they want to have a vision out there, like you're talking about, and it's just a matter of time, I'm not exactly sure when, but the sooner the better, that they're going to go forward and build it, then my advice is, yes, go ahead. If you're not sure, then there's likely to be change, and things would need to be partially redone in that context.
Okay.
But if you know what you want, then I don't see much room for change.
I think 5 years is certainly not ambitious. I think that's a long time from now. And I would hope that it's built and functional and gone through a couple cycles by then. I think if we're smart and we know the cost and we know the anticipated cost of construction in throw finger in the wind 3 years, we can actually budget in our CIP every year for that amount, and at the end of the day it can be built or construction can start in whatever time that council who runs the budget at that time decides. And I think so. I think it's smart to be, I guess the question you guys asked, not by asking it, is that where we want it to go? And I think between staff and your best opinions on the property and the layout is that's the best place for the council chambers, court chambers, committee chambers, and executive meeting room, etc. to go. And I have no qualms with that location.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily buying into the whole design. I'm not saying we don't need, that we should eventually work to move out of the Civic Center and have council chambers. It's just the rest of the design beyond A and G. I think that there are some variables. I would be interested in hearing from Mr. Peterson with respect to designing it all out versus designing just A and G now. Do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, my opinion is that you would do A and G to 100%. And if that's what we decided the answer is, and the rest of it, probably 25%.
Okay.
The E status, so that you have a reasonable cost estimate of what it's going to be. And you can show, as Councilmember McCray mentioned, you can show the public then, here's what we're planning long term. Here's what the money we're saving for and our CIP is for. So I think we need some level of definition of the meaning, but I don't think we need complete construction like that.
Okay.
Now, my question, I have
said before, I agree. I have a problem with the dollar per square foot of this council addition, the courtroom and all that. Can you help me understand why it's that $400 a square foot? What's the driving factor there?
Well, I think, thank goodness pricing, based on the pricing we're getting back these days, has basically leveled off. But boy, was it terrible after COVID for all of us. And for a couple of years, consumer inflation usually is like this, and construction inflation always outpaces consumer inflation. And that happened after COVID too. And there were a couple of years there where it was over 10% annual escalation. And it was just no fun. And so we're in that new climate. Some people ask, why haven't costs gone back down? Well, they just never do that. They level off. Some trades might go down a little bit, but others will level off or go up. So pricing just tends to never go down over time, barring a major depression, and nobody wants that. So that's one item. Another is that the shell of the building is the most expensive part. And so with that addition, you have the shell. In the other buildings, you already have it. So I think those are the two main factors that explain the high unit cost.
What is the construction technique of the council chambers? Is it
Class A steel? Yeah.
Okay, so it's steel and just an exterior.
It's type 2B, non-combustible construction, fully spring.
Standard commercial construction. There's volume in the council chamber. It's got a high ceiling. It's got some elevated finishes.
And it's a nice space. I wouldn't say it's over the top, but it's nice.
Do y'all agree with Mr. Peterson's assessment about doing the full construction drawings on A and G and doing sort of the 25% on what we anticipate would be down the road?
25% CD set, is that what you're? Yeah.
Schematic design level.
Oh, we've already completed.
This is schematic design.
Not for what's coming though. If we change the layout, then obviously schematic design changes.
Well, we didn't.
We haven't changed schematic design much. Building A would be the only thing.
It would be the only part.
Yeah, we completed schematic design, so for us, we would take the rest of the campus to a design development level or just a portion of it.
So basically, it's at 25%, basically now.
20%.
Or 20%.
For us, SD is 20%.
So technically, we do have something to show the public. Like, this is what it would look like in 5 years.
So there's not a whole, with respect to non-A and non-G, there's not a whole lot, to get to that 25%, there's not a whole lot of work. There's not another 200 grand in work to get there, right?
To get to
not A, excluding A and G.
Yeah.
With respect to what you've accomplished, design, schematic, drawing so far, as to everything other than A and G, you're most of the way there. Is that correct?
I think so. If the goal is to have just schematic design level documents, we would need to redo the areas that we're going to redo outside A and G, and it would be the same level of drawings that you see here.
Okay. So, I mean...
So then we wouldn't have to move forward any further than we would have. But I want to make sure I understand this. So with that being said, we wouldn't have to move forward with continuing the design or however you worded it. But if we just did A and G to 100%, we say, okay, phase 2 and 3 are going to be, here's phase 2 and 3, but we're not there yet. We're just going to do A and G. So basically, we wouldn't be moving forward with the rest of the design because it's already there. The rest of the design's already there.
I think that's a mistake, but
I'm just saying that's what's being said here.
Yeah.
The concern is if you continue, it is not a large cost in order to provide such a greater level of detail and understanding of what it will cost to construct and what the vision.
So when you say
it's not a large cost.
Large cost.
Based on what?
But I want to know, okay, I feel like, I'm not going to say, when someone says that to me, I'm like, oh, that sounds great, and then later on down the line, it's, oh, well, that's actually gonna be $300,000 more. No, I wanna know, if we go the full, I wanna know what is that gonna cost the city, because how much did we already spend on all of this so far?
Well, it's 347 so far, and the fee, if you do the full 20 million, is 7%, right? Is it 7%?
7.5.
Well, our fee is based on the construction cost, which is not 20. It doesn't include the soft costs, so it's
Okay.
less than that. And it's this figure, 16,494,000, it's a percentage of that. And I'm sorry, I don't have our contract here.
So that's like 1.1, right? 1.1 million? 7% of 16?
That sounds right.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, if we spent 347 and you're saying have them design the rest of it, you're talking about burning another, 700,000.
I don't think
20% of our fee is for the construction phase and 5% is for the bid phase. So those would not happen. So 25% of our fee would be on.
I also think
that would be in the future.
I just don't see, because there is, as James has pointed out, there is some, hey, that's a whole lot of money for council chambers, this, that, and the other. If we have the design, if we have what you can show to the public and say, this is what we're trying to do eventually, I just don't think it makes sense to spend, $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 more just to have the, whatever it is, IDP.
I think, let me ask this before I open my mouth more. How long does it take, in general, for a building that is roughly 8,700, 9,000 square feet, in between, that's in a lot that's already surrounded by other buildings? How long does it take that from a 25% or 20% design to a 75 IFB? I mean, in general, I'm not going to hold you to these dates.
Well, you're talking about the design. The design development phase follows the schematic design phase, the phase we've already completed. That's 3 months. Then usually we pause our work while the general contractor is updating the cost estimate. So we're not proceeding with our work without knowing what the cost is.
Yeah.
Right? It's the safe way to go. Then once the new cost estimate comes in, we compare it to the old. There's a variance report comparing it to the prior estimate. We see what's up, what's down. We have a discussion. We talk about VE. We align so the budget is needed, then proceed into the next phase of work, which is construction documents. So it would be 4 months for the construction documents phase, so to 75% would be 3 months. So it's 3 plus 3 plus 1, that's 7 months.
Okay, 7 months.
I mean, quite frankly, Drew, I think that if we get from where we are right now, focusing on A and G, and get to complete construction drawings and get it out for bid and look at proceeding with construction, which I would guess is going to be a 8 to 12 month, is that a fair amount of time?
8 months for renovation would probably be adequate. It's for contractor to answer, but new construction would be closer to a year.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, with that sort of timeline, I think that we'll have plenty of notice to say, hey, we're making progress, things are looking good, let's turn it back on and let's do the rest of the design. I just don't think it's something we need to do right now, because we also need to see, these are projected numbers on the expense, estimates on the expense. Right. And so we need to see what the difference is between these estimates and estimated costs versus when city employees finally move into building A, how much will we have actually spent? When Public Works moves into building G, how much will we have actually spent?
Okay, I get that, and you compare estimates to actual costs, etc. So what does that have to do with the design, though? All
I'm saying is there's enough time right now. We can go through the process focusing on A and G, and as we're doing it and as we're seeing what's occurring, we can then say to the architects, yeah, go ahead and proceed, because 7 months is not It's not a long period of time.
Exactly. And 7 months is going to come and go. And another 7 months is going to come and go. Another 7 months. And before then, you're talking 7
So
years.
you want to spend $800,000 or $453,000 more dollars now on something that may not get to a point of breaking ground for another 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Absolutely. You know why? Because it is going to break ground and the design's not going to change. Maybe it would, I guess, but I don't see why it would. This design has virtually been out there since February for 10 months, and I'm afraid, maybe this is fear talking, I'm afraid if we don't get the design, we're going to say, oh, that's $600,000 that we're going to have to spend.
And we're not going to
do it because we don't want to spend the now $7 million that's going to cost to build that building, and then 10 years from now it's going to cost $7 million. Then we're going to see that in 20 years it's going to take this building only $8 million to renovate versus the 18 that it's going to take to build that city hall that we have designed for.
I think not doing it is short-sighted.
I think committing ourselves to actually completing the project doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to do it and that we're committing to building it on a certain time frame, but it says when we're ready to build, we will have a city hall in 15 months versus 15 months plus 7 months, plus delays, plus costs. And I say city hall, I meant council chambers.
Yeah.
And
community space.
And community, well, we already have A&G, and I mean, I think we can work with remediation costs of one of those buildings.
Bravo. Overthinking. Hey guys, I've got 2 council members that have already made a comment about they can't hear the discussion. Please be mindful.
I feel like my back's been turned to you two.
Okay, I'm listening.
I think if we don't, we set ourselves up to be in the same situation the city has been in, to where it's hey, we need to do this and we never do. And I'm really tired of that. I'm willing to move forward with the phased approach and not push for the bond to do everything at once. But I'll be honest, I think I'm only willing to do that if we're willing to go ahead and put the full plan out. I think we owe it to everyone to have the full plan.
Hey guys, please.
Yeah, I mean,
please.
We've heard you, man. We've heard you.
That's the thing, is we've been waiting and waiting. The administration building, I think there's since 2000, and it's always been next. And you have a fair point, Simon, about building, and I'm probably the one person on voting council right now that voted to approve proceeding with that city hall. And the reason that didn't work out is because that whole thing didn't go forward. There wasn't shovels in the ground. There wasn't the whole thing, the whole project didn't fall. This project, we're all agreeing that will go forward.
I hear you. You're making very good points to me, but I will say this. That's part of the public trust. And to me, that's part of the trust issue. All right. I'm with what you guys are saying on going ahead and moving forward with design. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, what if we have all this design ready to go, and then, I don't know, 4 or 5 years down the line, there's another council, and they're looking at it, and they're like, well, we still don't have the money to do this. We still can't get a bond to pass for it, or we can't fund it. Then we've spent, I guess kind of to your point, we've already spent, I don't know, $400,000 or whatever the amount of money was to design it for something that we still can't afford to do as a city. So it's, yes, do we owe it to everyone? Of course we do. I agree with that. But my worry is that if we spend all the money now to design it and get it ready to go and tee it up, what happens if we haven't gotten the revenue to be able to do that? It's almost like we need a crystal ball to see if this, so
But see,
That's my hesitation.
I understand that. I don't see how the drawings are gonna expire.
I don't see how they're gonna expire either, but right now, at least kind of the way I'm looking at it is, I budgeted this much money to do this, and it's now going to be more expensive anyway, or a little bit more expensive, so I need to just section it out. I have to kind of cut back somewhere, and that could be one way we can cut back.
Well, I think we're already cutting back. We're only doing 2 portions. So we've gone from 21 million to essentially, what's going to be 8 million, you think, by the time 6 million?
10, 11.
But well, we've already cut back significantly, right? And so to me, an extra $400,000, $600,000 to have.
That's still a lot of money to.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not. I don't disagree. That's a lot of money. But for that amount to be included, to have a complete and total plan and a clear vision for future councils that citizens are fully aware of, to make sure they remind future councils of where we want to be headed, I think that's smart. And I think that's the. I think a lot of people would want that.
What happens if future councils don't have the vision that this council has?
There could be 1,000 hypotheticals of future councils, and I think that's even fair to go down the rabbit hole. I think we have to think about now, this council, the citizens, what they've been so vocal about, and we need to operate on the here and now. Yes, we need to plan for like big dips.
But that's why the 25% makes sense to me. But doing the full-blown plans for an extra $453,000 is like, because, to Singleton's point on the council chambers, that's a huge expense, at where was that number?
It's 407 a square foot. I'm gonna bring that back up more.
So I mean, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, Jen. It's like, let's do the full package so we can say this is where we're going.
But
I just fear that because cash flow is an issue in the city, and
for the support we need, it's like I get what you're saying too. I do. I get it. But it's one of those things that we need for the cohesive component of this type of project, that we need to see the vision. The citizens have screamed
but
for
the citizens aren't going to be looking at construction drawings. They're going to be looking at renderings and diagrams and schematics.
Which are already out there.
Show me the MEP design. I mean, come on. That's the difference. And I don't think we're losing anything by backburnering that while we focus on A and G.
I feel like they've asked for clarity and specifics over and over and over and over, and that's what we're giving them.
I just see that if we don't do it, then we're mitigating. It's also showing, in a way, it's also sending a signal that there's a lack of commitment towards following through.
Towards the vision.
And quite frankly, this council, as a member of this council and not a member of future councils, I have a commitment to this vision. I mean, and not all at once, and it's not being all done at once, but I think I want it to get done, and I want the plans for it to be done, to be ready to be done. So if and when those future councils decide it's time, and they have the cash flow to do it, it can start.
Can I speak to the cash flow piece?
Yeah,
right now we're looking at about $7.1 million for those 2 buildings. Even if we could possibly, and that's a big stretch, put away $1.3 million a year for the next, it would take us 6.5 years to come up with that cash to do that phase with cash on hand. So we're talking about a long ways out for phase 2. I don't, the debate on to do the plans or not, I think that's a healthy debate to have. I think showing the vision is a good thing. But I also want to put into perspective, it's not going to be easy to save up the money to get this project done.
So you're 100% right on that. I think my thought would be that if we can get the first 2 done and we actually have a clear vision and clear plan, I think by that time, with other bonds falling off, I think at some point that's would be a valid conversation to bond for the rest of the piece. And I think that's a realistic conversation. Which is also why I think it would be very important to have a clear vision. And so I think
and have a project shovel ready, so when
Right,
the
like,
bonds
here it
pass,
is. Here you go.
you don't
You
need
may
to
move
wait
forward.
another 7 months
Right, another
on
year.
top of the 3 months to go from ballot to approval.
I think I'm hearing the majority like to give the city manager the direction to continue with design.
Yes.
Are there only 2 of us?
Yeah.
Yes, there's only 2 of us.
So, if we go back to the council chambers courtroom area, very expensive. I appreciate understanding the envelope is the driving factor there. But there was a comment of elevated finishes. To me personally, that is not important. You can do the same finishes as City Hall. So, does anyone else have comments on getting that number down? Is it important? What aspects of that design are important?
Of the chambers
The
itself?
chambers, courtroom, lobby, I think that's all in one line.
Is there a significant, like, I know a lot of people don't like tilt wall construction, but would there be a significant cost savings if you could make something aesthetically appealing by going tilt wall rather than the iron and steel?
Well, we have a tilt wall project that's starting construction now. It's for a school. It's wonderful technology. You see it everywhere. But I just don't think we have it's economical when you do it at scale, when you do it in volume, when you have repetitive modules that you can erect over and over.
So this is too small a project?
It's just too small. It's a neat idea, though.
Okay. I'm just trying to, and I tend to agree with James. I mean, when you look at the number of people who attend city council meetings, at least for as long as I've been attending them, to have a vast amount of seating and,
I think
higher end finishes, I'm just more of a functional person, right?
I think the courtroom.
Having a dais.
More the courtroom.
There's a lot more that goes into it than city council.
The courtroom is the reason for the seating, not the city council.
Have you ever come up when they've had court?
It's been a long time.
It's packed.
that
So like
room is
I've been out there
packed.
before and shocked at I've never seen so many people in that room.
That room
So
is packed.
that's why the seating, like people asking about the seating, that's why there's so much of it.
But you can have and I've seen some pretty crappy courtrooms. You can have seating for a lot of people, but again, you don't need to have high-end finishes.
Would
know if they're
the
high-end,
regular grade finishes be
Yeah.
better than this room?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's
I don't know where
probably
you're getting
room
high
for.
grade from either.
He made the comment originally, there were high-end
Maybe I
finishes.
misspoke. It's
And I was
not.
like, I think we've said the bare minimum, please and thank you.
They're not office spaces. It's a little more.
Okay.
It
I
looks
mean,
nicer than your
We'll have to adjust it to what
I
you're liking, of
I
course.
think the key word's functional and durable. If it's a building for 40 years, we
Yes.
want it to be durable. And
I think that's it. I really feel like council's of 50,000 foot. We're way up there. I don't want to get into the specific fixtures, but I like that direction of, we would like to cast the vision of this is functional and durable. If it comes out to a price point, it comes out to a price point. At the moment, I'm uncomfortable with $407 a square foot.
in today's dollars.
Yeah.
We'll work on that number. Yeah. We can get it done.
But a lot of it is envelope, and the finishes are not the driving factor.
Right.
Yeah, something tells me that's not going to save what we think it's going to.
I don't think it's going to save
It's not
what
going to magically
I
make
agree.
it
I don't think
$200
it's
a square foot, guys.
Yeah.
Well, this is the type of thing that we will go through. We can have all kinds of alternates and VE options for different finishes, and you can pick from a menu and see what the value is.
There is a healthy conversation to have in the general contract with Brookstone about VE opportunities. We're just not there yet in the
Yeah.
process
It's too
to have
early.
that discussion, looking at developing a long menu of ways to save.
Austin, you threw out a number, I think 7.1, based on the 2.4 and the 1.9. Is that for A and G? Is that taking in the soft costs and construction?
No, that 7.1 was the council chambers and the gym classroom building. The
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we sit here today, I mean, we're 2.4 and 1.9 for A and G. You're looking at 4.3 plus obviously some demo, some site work. I mean, so yeah, you're probably looking at, for those two buildings, what do you think? 5, 6,
10?
10?
By the time you factor in the site work, the conditions, all of the contractor contingency, the warranty, the bonds, the FF&E, everything, I think you're still going to be somewhere to the 8 to 10 million figure.
For just A and G?
Because you've got all of the, as if we're going to do the site work, and that's another piece to ask, if we're going to tear down the buildings and if we're going to do the electric and all of it, like, we need to go back to the contractor, but I think it's not going to be 5 million. My gut doesn't think it's going to be that low.
Building A and C alone are 4.3 before the contractor.
It's about 15% factor.
12%.
12. So it's 4.3 for A and G. Say site work is 1 point, I don't know, probably 1.5 to 1 3/4. So that's 5.8, 5.9 times 1.12. So you're a little over, call it, I don't know, what is that? 6 1/4. Oh, you're a 7.
7.2.
7, excuse me. Plus your soft costs. Times 1.15.
Oh, yeah, they want 1.2, so then you add another 25% for contingency and soft costs.
7.2, yeah.
7.2 times 1.25.
Yeah. About 9 when you factor in the FF&E and everything else.
9.
Well, the 8.15 includes the 50%.
Yeah.
Or sorry, contingency. I was thinking a owner contingency in there as well.
Yeah.
Teams. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Peterson, you are a very respected authority on the subject. If you'd like to stand up, do you have any comments from the rest of the discussion?
Say that one more time.
Would you like to stand up? Do you have any other comments that you want to add to the rest of this discussion that we've had?
I think we're on the right track. I mean, you're looking at how to save money, how to do it on a different basis. I think the 8.1 is very progressive, because I'm not sure we need a whole new electrical grid. I'm not sure we need a whole new mechanical system. And so there's a lot of things that are included that I think could be scaled back on A and G. But no, I think it's on the right path. I think what I would do is do a concept design for what we're discussing right now for the whole thing, so everybody can see what it looks like. There's the concept, and then once that concept is approved, then take the A and G that we're going to accomplish and take those to CD and leave everything else at concept. I wouldn't take it to full design. I mean, things change in a year. You know, I designed my house and I had shag carpet and avocado fixtures. You know, they didn't last real long. And it's just the little things that happen, even in a couple of years, that I would not recommend taking to 100% design on the next phases. Because something's going to change. It could be a code that changes. It could be, you know, whatever it happens to be. We may need 2 lactation rooms, you know. Pick it. So that's what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you. Y'all are also very well qualified, and there's been multiple suggestions that we engage, we find a way to have Mr. Peterson working directly with these architects. Mr. Peterson working directly with these architects. I believe that council needs to give some direction on that subject.
If you want some direction, I'm happy to give it. I think that he's given his experience and in the industry, and I think there's a mutual respect with these two individuals, the existing architects. I think it would be beneficial, and I think it would also help build confidence in the community. So I'd like to see Mr. Peterson work with the two of y'all as we move forward on A and G, and work to come up with the best plan and work to come up with the most cost-effective, getting the most bang for our buck in pursuing these two buildings.
Yeah, well,
I think having a bridge from us to the citizens is not a bad idea. You know, he sat down with Connie, he sat down with me, he's been in this community for a long time. I'm friends with his daughters. I mean, he's good people. I think that having him as a liaison or someone to, you know, I guess be a representative of the public, kind of like a little mini committee, might not be a bad idea as far as bridging the gap that we seem so hard. You know, it's really hard for us to bridge. A lot of it because it's misinformation, preconceived notions, all the good stuff that you will you'll get a taste of what we get to have a taste of. So welcome to the club. I think it might be a good idea. Now, I mean, I don't know what that role specifically would have to entail, but I think just having a voice or being a consultant of some sort, or a representative. Advisor, there we go. Advisor, that's the word I'm looking for. It might be a good idea to have that bridge, specifically for in the future, if we do have to bond, then we have somebody that was there that says, no, I checked, you know, I'm not having secret meetings with slush funds or whatever, like here they are. Because we're not, but it would be nice to have somebody from the public be able to just be on our side a little bit when we really are doing the best we can here. And you know, I know there's a lot, but I don't think it's a bad idea.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Well, at the council meeting, I actually took Mr. Peterson up on his offer to advise, if you would. And this was following a sit-down meeting about this project. And again, I don't know what the scope would look like or whatever. I know that it wouldn't be, I'm sure there's, whatever is legally he's able to, but I do like the idea of somebody, I don't have this 40 plus years experience in what you have. Mine's just water, sewer, drainage. But I like that there would be somebody in our community who lives here. You guys are speaking some sort of language that I don't understand, but you both seem to be, or you all seem to be very respectful of one another and understand one another. I think that you both see the vision, and I don't see Mr. Peterson sort of railroading or coming in and doing something that I just don't see that in you and in your spirit. And so I'm totally in support of him.
He's respectful, being part of it, talking over us, or he's a respectful guy.
I kind of combine myself. I'm for it.
I agree the problem's going to come down to what does that look like? That's not something that's normally done. You also, as well as his resume looks, theirs is also equally, and they're very well qualified for the job. And
I agree.
Oh, this is not speaking anything towards you other than just bridging a gap
there
that
are...
needs to be bridged to have support.
Oh, no,
I don't
there-
want you guys to think that our recommending it's anything to do with your credentials or feeling like you have lack of.
I think obviously everyone that is speaking from an advisory point of view, especially the architects and Mr. Peterson, come with a large breadth of experience. I think what Mayor Singleton has pointed out is, what is the scope? I don't think you guys have the room at your office to set them up for, Monday through Friday working and
they're their own company. We can't expect them to include it in that way.
I wouldn't think that.
Maybe a good question is, do y'all have any objection to working with Mr. Peterson and listening to him and benefiting from the years of his experience?
But here's where I think more importantly, it's what is the scope, and I think it's great that we bring extra knowledge into these processes and ideas and that's a part of it. So there's eyes and ears even beyond what maybe citizens normally get. Full transparency, and I don't think the city has been against full transparency. I just don't want the process, whether it's Mr. Peterson, whether it's me, or anybody, to something. What's the word? Something in the spoke, like. Stick in the spoke to get harmed. So I guess that's all about what the scope is. If there's a meeting with council that he's attending,
or is it attending the meeting of this? If more like that, there's another meeting with the city officials that they meet together to discuss support. Is that what we're looking at? I guess I'm confused about what the role is.
Yeah.
So I don't. There's zero denying Mr. Peterson's qualifications or of the architectural company here. I don't think there's any denying the qualifications.
Right.
My question and what confuses me is like, what does this look like? Because I don't understand how that would look moving forward. Is all I'm asking.
Could you ask Mr. Peterson if you were to act as an advisor?
You're the one suggesting this.
Oh, okay, yeah. So as an advisor, how would you envision yourself working with these two gentlemen and their firm?
Well, what I'd ask for is that the authorization from council to do that, and then the cooperation, obviously, of staff. I would never put myself in a position to do anything outside of the staff. I mean, that's got to be, they're the boss. I'm just kind of the advisor going, have we thought about it? Did we look at, can we consider this? And offering options and sometimes criticism. That's what I do really. And then working with on that type of basis, but supporting staff, if you will. But I'd like to have a voice in giving opinions and options and asking questions.
Well, I think he's asking, excuse me, he also is asking questions that I wouldn't think to ask. When I read his, excuse me, when I read the handout that you sent out, I mean, because I'm not an architect, no. So that to me, that was nice to see, okay, those are questions. I mean, maybe he obviously he wouldn't be meeting with you guys on his own or whatever, but and if we sit in a conversation like this or meet about it.
I'd say then in that respect, and once again, the scope seems to be then as an advisor to staff, not so much to the architect.
That's kind of, well, I was actually kind of questioning because what I appreciated was the information you sent. I know Connie had asked for your credentials, but that email before where it came back where it had the explanation. Mm-hmm. So like that to me was valuable.
Yes.
So my question is, what about having, I do know council is allowed to bring in, I don't want to say the word consultant, I don't think that's right, but we're allowed to bring in someone to ask questions to, like in executive session.
Yeah, we can bring anybody.
Like we can bring someone in. So my only question is would it not be more beneficial instead to let them do their job, like to let them do their job that we've hired them for, let them do their work, and then when we get when we get whatever the next product is, because I feel like we've tonight given a lot of direction. Maybe have we not some direction? Okay, so we've given ideas. Stop. But my thought is, what about taking whatever they come back with, and when we have our next meeting, like with whatever has come back, make sure he gets copies of that, and then get like have another evaluation, like get his opinion on that so that we can take that input. I almost wonder if that might be a better use of everyone's time versus trying to figure out how to make like like creating a whole nother subset.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is I think there's what you're describing, there's a potential inefficiency in it, and I think that it would be more productive to allow Mr. Peterson on his own time in cooperating with the existing architects to meet with them periodically as is convenient for him, convenient for them, as they're going through the process, so that these things that he observes and say, hey, can we squeeze a little more here, or can we do this, or have you thought about this, or whatever, and then when they bring back whatever the next step is, the product for council to review, he can weigh in. Yeah, we looked at this and we discussed it a little bit and decided to go this way because it made more sense in this situation, whatever. So I would see him as working cooperatively with the architects in the process, and then also reporting to council, because he's better versed than you, me, or anyone else in this table, except for these two gentlemen, as to the process that they're going through. And we may not even know to ask the right questions. So we can rely upon someone with his expertise to help us through the process, and it'll just give us more confidence as we move through the process. That's my thought.
I would suspect that both of you are also very well skilled. There's already an existing way this works. The architects work through city manager and report to city council. City council reports to citizens. We have a variety of citizens that are subject matter experts in a wide, vast range of items. I'm not sure how often y'all collaborate. I'm very confident in your ability to come to us when you have questions on direction and what needs to happen from here. One of the things that we have done in the past is appoint 2 council members and the mayor to meet without council with the city manager on certain projects or land purchasing and things that needed rapid collaboration.
Like a committee.
It's a subcommittee. It's the only thing allowed by law.
Yeah.
I don't know that we've ever formalized it to that point, but we definitely have had a couple of times where 3 people handheld a project. When they didn't feel like they had the consensus of council, they'd bring it back to full council.
Right. Streamlined everything.
That is an avenue to go with this. I think having Mr. Peterson directly work with the architects is something we're not going to hash out in the next 2 hours.
No, but I actually am fine with Jen's idea. What Jen is describing, that's fine for me.
Like he has a chair that he sits here too?
Well, like when something comes up, yeah, he's asking questions that to me, but I can see where there would be an issue like back and forth with the architect and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I mean,
I guess from a transparency point of view, I'm thinking more of the fact that would enable him to present he could present at a council meeting.
Right, exactly.
Instead of it just being I don't want to call it side quest, that sounds weird, but as far as a whole separate project, but then he could still have, still see documents like everybody else can see, but we can actually receive feedback.
Yeah.
And that one
from a knowledgeable source.
From a knowledgeable
source, so we can all take it in and we could all see his opinions. I mean, I think that was where I was thinking where that would go, because I guess I'm just trying to understand how else it would really
Well, the way I see my value to the concept is in the concept development. I mean, for them to develop something and not come back and throw rocks at it after the finish, and you decide how to go back and forth. And you're right, staff directs the architect. I'm the casual observer asking questions, but it's got to be during the concept phase, in my opinion. If you want me to try to sell it, I've got to be part of it.
But aren't we past the concept phase? I mean, we're completed with schematic design. We're already in design development. We're past the point of that.
Yeah.
No, we're not past the point of concept development. If we're going to redo A and G, we're starting design again.
Are we starting over?
No, I think
exactly what we talked about maximizing A for all the city employees, which is going to take some reconfiguration of the existing
I'm
office.
confident we could do that in an hour's time. It's not going to take much. I think we can do this well without having to go all the way back to concept design.
No, based on the conversations we've had with these two gentlemen, with Mr. Peterson, I feel confident that they can work with staff and look at it and say, how can we improve what we have, what sort of things can be done, and we can very quickly, not within an hour, but we can very quickly improve the design so we can start moving forward on A and G. That's my thought.
Think of a different idea than that. I think there's a meet in the middle grounds on this though. Like, what if he had an hour of advisory time that he could ask any questions or whatever, and then, like Jen said, he's an extension of us for a small point. I think that I like the idea of a bridge, not because his expertise is different than theirs or anyone is one or better, but we consistently have had this disconnect between big projects and the citizens. And it would be nice, it would be really nice to have that bridge. Nothing about anything to do with y'all's talent, but it has been, I mean, and this is not this project, this is the last team. So, and we've tried committees, we've tried 1,000 different things. We've not tried this, and like maybe it's a good idea. And I do think limiting it is a good, like having parameters on it. So like having an hour session or whatever for him to throw rocks, but don't throw rocks, okay?
But I'm not sure that we align with Mr. Peterson. He said a moment ago, his thoughts are with concept.
Oh.
And we have concept all the buildings except for building A that we're talking about putting another department in and making some changes to some office space. But they're not big, wild changes. They are shrinking some offices, moving some walls, changing a few things within that building.
I feel like Stu said similar to that.
Yeah, the layout, I mean, changing the layout is not a 1 hour situation. And I guess you have to decide what you're going to do with the Emergency Operations Center on a part-time basis, or until you do something. I mean, it's not redoing the entire concept, but it is more than sitting down for an hour and moving a wall.
We have 3 offices that we need to relocate from the Parks and Rec building into the new city administration building. This is not going to take long, folks. We've got a little lobby area.
Simplifying it also.
Oh, I am.
I genuinely believe that, having an extra set of eyes with that degree of expertise.
And I'm not talking about that.
Working with these two gentlemen would be beneficial for the city. And I mean, the fact that we're getting such an experienced person without the typical consulting costs, I think would be foolish to squander this opportunity. And I would say just allow him, and I'm going to ask again, do you gentlemen have an aversion to working with Mr. Peterson and sharing with him and brainstorming and how can we make this better and how can we get really good value for the city of Jersey Village?
Even if they did, they're not going to say it, right?
Let me ask you this.
I mean, like, let's be real. I mean, I don't think they do, but I don't think they would answer you, honestly.
In a perfect world for you, and I think you see what we're saying, of bridging the gap between them. In a perfect world for you, what makes the most sense for where he fits in?
Well, we work with building committees all the time,
Okay.
a range of professionals. Occasionally there's an architect, maybe 2 on a committee, and we will work with them on the design in a couple of work sessions. So we are very used to.
Well, then I think it goes back to James's idea.
I think if we were to hire a consultant, we wouldn't blindly hire the consultant and say, go meet with them and come up with a design. We would have them work with him, come up with a design. We'd take that design, we'd meet with our consultant, and we would talk about it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like either pick 2 council members and we have a meeting, or we all meet, I don't really care. But they meet, look at this what they come up with next, and go from there.
And Dennis is included in that.
Sure.
Yes. I think that makes sense to me.
And I want to be clear, and I've said from the outset, I think, and this is no disrespect to you, Mr. Peterson, or you guys, is I wanted Building A to be functional, and I think it had to be able to, given the phased approach, has to be able to handle the public versus a built lobby.
Correct.
So then we have to redesign it to create the lobby, which I think we did in 5 minutes here through discussion. Otherwise, yes, there are great uses staff can do, and I don't think where a wall goes that can be effectively moved during construction if we needed to and how staff works is up to us. The one thing I would add is it would be great to have a mayor's office in there.
Yeah.
But I think there's 3 hotel rooms right there that we're planning on.
That's what I plan on using.
Yeah, so that to me fits that bill. So that's where I come in. I like the idea of a subcommittee if we need one, to just say, yeah, this fits the bill. I withdraw my consideration from that, given I won't be here in 6 months. But is it 6 already? Yeah. But yeah, I just think that's probably the better way to go.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't just all meet together. I mean, is it really necessary to do a subcommittee for 1 meeting, 2 meetings possibly? I was just asking.
Or just going forward.
Yeah.
I think it might be a little time consuming for us to continue. We've been through that road where executive sessions after every other week,
I think
it's a
picking
lot.
2 people and Mr. Peterson is where my heart is settling. You could convince me otherwise if you have.
But I think you've got one vested interest in a particularly different direction than some of the others. And so it would make sense to put Simon on there. And then and Drew's already said he's not interested. And so between the 3 of you, who's interested, who has the most interest and maybe aligns more with others that doesn't necessarily align with Simon, because if you get to the competing interests in the room, if we come up with an agreement, well, then you probably have an agreement of council. But if you meet and you're not able to agree, well, then you need to call. You got to wait 3 days. Well, now it's almost a week, but you got to wait a week to meet everybody. But 3 of us can meet with Austin Architects and Mr. Peterson at a pretty quick slate. We don't have to wait a week to call a meeting. We were like, hey, here you go. I'm good on Friday morning. See you then.
Right.
I guess that's my concern is we all have seems to have very differing opinions, and that would be my concern with doing a subcommittee.
Then what about the 2 of you?
No, I don't want to commit to more meetings.
I'm fine with it. You fine? Do you want to do it?
No, I don't think I would be a good subcommittee person.
All right, bestie. Me and you.
Excuse me.
That's fine. But is that comfortable for you?
I think that's great. I think it needs to be, like I said, because I think they typically have differing opinions on most things, and I think that would be seen as, but what I'm saying is, like, I think that would be seen as more fair for everybody to see, because I think, like I said, transparency is important, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. When stuff starts looking like their people are meeting over here and not the rest of the community, it gets weird. That's why please believe me, I don't want to go to more meetings. But for the sake of transparency,
the directive would be that the 2 of us and staff meet with Mr. Peterson and the architects through this process.
Yeah, the 3 of us, Mr. Peterson, city manager, and architects.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if stuff needs to come to council as a whole, y'all can bring stuff to council as a whole.
Right. That is what we have done in the past.
Yeah, and we condense it, get the information digestible and ready for y'all, and just fill you in.
And I think that would, I
I
think that's fully support, and that accomplishes that without it being so vague.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody good with that?
You ready to hang out?
Yep.
Love it.
So what are we doing? Are we doing a new concept? And is the concept stuff supposed to be worked out with staff and the architect that comes back to the community?
Not redoing the concept. No.
Staff and architect, y'all work on a new design. Take what direction you've received here, work on a newer design. When you get that design,
Then
when you would bring that to council, the 4 or 5 of us will meet.
Okay.
Talk about it and go from there.
And by new design, you mean layout within Building A?
It's really
We're not
Building A.
changing the whole vision, right?
No, we're not changing the vision.
Just Building A.
Like that's, as long as we're clear on that.
We're really
that's-
just working some offices within
And I
Building
think that's
A.
great, because I do think it's very valuable. I think he has very valuable information to add, and so I think that is important, but I just think it's also more efficient if it's done that way.
So you see my participation then as part of this committee,
Yes, sir.
but not as part of meeting with staff and the architects to come up with, whether you want to call it concept, new layouts, whatever. Is that correct?
Yeah, because I think we have to, the best way to do it is to stay within the current flow of information and the current governance that is already existing, other than instead of figuring something else out. And so let's move with that in mind for now. Y'all work a design, bring that back to city manager. He'll bring it back to the subgroup of council, Mr. Peterson. We'll see how that meeting goes.
Can you summarize that, our goal one more time, just write down what you said.
Staff is going to continue to work with the architects to come up with reworking the design. Once they're satisfied with their design, that would normally be a point where city manager would bring that to council. He's going to bring that to the smaller subset, Mr. Peterson. We're going to meet, discuss, look at the options, see if we have an agreement or if we want to send something back or where we go from there. And that is the extent at which we are planning this, is that next meeting. Things can change after that. We can call another meeting of everybody. We could send things back. There's a lot of possibilities there.
The only thing that I would add to that is I think it would be beneficial if the architects would commit to reach out to Mr. Peterson as you're moving forward on this process and before we get there, so you don't come up with something and bring it back and have, just a complete conflict there. I mean, I think he's got some good points to weigh in, and I think if y'all discuss it, you'll be able to better conceptualize kind of what we're all discussing, and then hopefully what comes back to
Didn't we just
staff.
talk about that?
We just decided to do the other.
We also would be happy to make sure he did do quite a write-up, very nice write-up, had a lot of good points. He sent that to us in an email on December 1st. That's public information. We can just provide that to y'all.
Right. Which you said you read it too, right?
We've seen it.
Okay.
But he's able to ask the critical questions, double advocate, whatever he would like to call it, on the ground.
So we're waiting for a new layout, which will come to a group of us to review, ask questions, and then
make recommendations.
and
Absolutely.
then it goes to the whole council.
And then we can sit and help make.
It could go a lot of directions. It could go back to council, it could go back to them. We'll see how that meeting goes. All right, thank you very much. City manager has your info, just how to get in touch with you. I do not believe we have any further actions to take.
Unless
regarding
staff
this.
needs further direction?
I think we've got, Austin, do you have anything else you need to? Okay. That concludes our meeting. We're going to adjourn at 9:50.
Thank you.